Hey everybody. Oh, how you doing today? Today is the day. It's finally over. We're voting in Doug Ford. I gotta tell you, I'm just happy that it's gonna be over. Hey Vince, how you doing, bud? I'm just happy it's gonna be over. Like, let's just get the band-aid ripped off here. Hey Oddity, how you doing? I do have a where is it? Live election results, poll by poll. Basically, we're gonna watch in real time the decline of our province. Like, my position. Hey Eric, how you doing, bud? My position on it is as simple as it can get, which is like, I get why people voted for Doug Ford in the first place. I get why people swung conservative in the first place. Makes total sense. Uh, uh, People were mad with the liberal government. Gave the liberals a lot of opportunities, right? Like like McGuinty resigned. Wynne came in. Wynne was given a couple of terms. Like, it's not like they dove. It's not like the populace dove on the most psychopathic person. Like Tim Hudak was a true psycho, like a true psycho. The guy's job is, like, the only job the guy ever had was working for Walmart, going to stores where and firing people local management wouldn't. Right, so he's a union buster. Who outright was campaigning on firing 100,000 public service workers, right? Like, outright campaigning on it. Just a dead-eyed shark, obviously seeking to plunder the populace, right? These sorts of things. But people still wanted to get rid of these liberals, and there's always grumbling happening. And so I get why people voted for Doug Ford. Doug Ford's an effective grifter, right? He's an effective liar. But to vote for him again, like a second time after everything he's done, like, it's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking, actually. And when you talk to the people who are voting conservative, like, it's extremely shocking. The views that they hold and that they espouse, like, all of that crazy nuttiness that came out through the pandemic has only grown and only gotten worse, right? Yeah, the decline of Ontario. Meanwhile, NDPers are like, we can still try June 2026. We might get a chance then. Andrea Horwath should resign. I don't know what needs to be said. Like, here's something fun that just came out today about Andrea Horwath. So her son, first of all, this is what her son looks like. Decided to pose with a banned assault rifle today, right? Taking pictures of himself with a banned assault rifle, right? We should ask Andrea Horwath's son what he thinks about guns. Like, sorry guys, she has to resign. Like, Doug Ford's daughter is going, and we give heat on Doug Ford for, like, yeah, his daughter's a climate change denier and a COVID denier, right? Like, pretty outspoken, right? This is what Andrea Horwath's son is up to. Like, she has to resign. Like, I don't care if it's an old picture. Like, I don't care. Like, she has to resign. Like, she's never going to be elected the premier of this province. It's never going to happen. And as long as we keep throwing our chips behind this unelectable person who has proven over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that she cannot win an election, then we're going to deal with fucking Doug Ford. Like, for fuck's sake. Like, for fuck's sake. It's like, we're being profoundly unserious about this. Like, profoundly. There's like a profundity to how unserious we are. Right? Yeah, and Jugmeat needs to resign too. Like, sorry, like the NDP is not a socialist party. It's not even a left wing party. It's hilarious to listen to conservatives talk about liberals and NDPers as if they're leftists. They actually call them leftists, which is shocking because, like, in no universe are they. I literally had a conversation with somebody who is dead set trying to convince me that Trudeau was a communist. Like, he wasn't saying it glibly. Like, he genuinely actually was arguing that Trudeau is a communist. And it's, like, brutal. No, I don't think this is true, Vince. That in 2009, Andrea said she needed 10 years to fix the NDP image after Ray. Now ONDP needs 10 years to fix themselves from Andrea's years. I don't think that's right. Like, I don't actually think that's right. I think that like, people can swing towards the NDP. That the NDP's image is not the image that's been tarnished. I really do think it's Andrea. Like, I really do. And also, like, let's be honest, man. Like, the NDP are weak. They look weak. They sound weak. They're not actually talking about legitimate solutions that'll actually help anybody, right? Like, they're bought by corporate power just like the rest of them. And, like, if the party decides to put up, like, if the party put up somebody like Joel Harden, right? Like, I've listened to Joel Harden talk in the House, right? There's somebody who actually sounds like they are capable of actually mounting an assault against the death cult. But the reality is that the NDP have been co-opted by the death cult, so it's not going to happen. And, like, no shit, more than 70% of teens report worse mental health compared to before COVID. Yeah, of course they do. Like, the COVID-19 period, the pandemic, was very revealing. It revealed a lot about our society and how it's going to react during crises, how it's going to react when things get real, right? Like, we should expect 30% of the society to actively work to destroy the society on purpose, right? That's the expectation that's been set now. Like, this is the reality of where we live, and you can see it, it's obvious. 30% of the society is calling for the death of the culture and the society and the species, right? Like, it's obvious. And then another 30 to 40% of the society is calling for, like, the most fascistic structuring of the society, right? With the remaining 30% just literally being crushed underfoot. Like, of course, 70%, and the 30% of the teens that don't have worse mental health are probably too stupid to even attain any kind of mental health awareness, right? Like, literally conservative voters, right? So, like, yeah, teens need to rebel. Like, that rebellious streak that teens are famous for, well, they better start harnessing that, and they better start using that, and, like, literally confronting the death cult in serious ways, because it's not going to get better. Like, it's not going to get better at all, even a little. Like, even a little. It's not going to improve one iota. And in fact, it's going to get dramatically worse very quickly. And the people who are voting for this death cult structure are going to laugh with glee when it happens. They're going to giggle about it. Like, this is the society that we live in. This is Canada. This is Ontario. Like, we've gone completely psychotic. Eric, did I just see? I didn't mean to glaze over this. Not great. Ended up going to the hospital today because of COVID. I'm really sorry to hear that, bud. I am. My mental health has been degrading lately since I caught COVID. No shit, dude. Like, no shit. Like, it sounds to me like you've got, like, the long COVID. Like, you're in it now, right? And you're taking the long journey. And we're here to support you, Eric, the best that we can. You know, even if that means just with solidarity, with support, to listen, right? Because the reality of COVID is that, and like this is the thing that's so despicable about our culture, right? Is that it's anybody could have gotten this. Like anybody can get this, anybody can swing it, and there's no telling what it's going to do, and we just didn't care, like really, like some of us pretended to, but like lots of us just didn't care at all. Like that's a you problem. Like that's basically what at least 30% of the society is saying. It's like, it's a you problem. Just deal with it, right? And how are we going to act when climate change starts destroying huge swaths of like farmland? Like how are we going to act when the famines start, right? Like we're going to act the same way. We're going to act the same way. And so yeah, 70% of teens report worse mental health, right? Because they know, at least ephemerally, right? They know like instinctually that they're being completely abandoned, right? And it's complete abandonment. Like there's not one thing going on to even lead like a shred of any kind of decency or hope. It's total abandonment, as like the right falls into fascism and the left falls into delusion, right? There's just no other way to describe this. Watson, good to see you, bud. What's despicable about the COVID response was the callousness and complete disinterest the ruling class has to human suffering and death with a virus that was easily containable. Yeah. I mean, and we can see that it was easily containable, right? Like, China, for God's sakes, has huge population, huge infection vectors, right? Like, it shares borders with, like, 13, 14 different countries, right? Like, literally, it's managed to contain this this virus very successfully, with outbreaks here and there. Meanwhile, the United States, which like shares borders with like Canada and Mexico, has two oceans on either side of it. It's just been sideswiped by this, right? And now we're just being told over and over again, just get back to work, plebs. Just deal with it. Live with it now, right? And it's the same narrative that's being used for climate change. Just adapt to it. Just adapt. It's fine. Just adapt, right? Shut up about it. Like, that's basically what we're being told. Just shut up about it. Like, I don't see any reason to participate in this culture. Like, it's insane what we're doing. Like, it's obviously insane. We were subordinated to the whims of capital from the start. China has a zero COVID policy, essentially wiped Omicron in Shanghai in 60 days. Yeah. Forced quarantine, shuttering people, killing pets. I mean, come on, bud. Like, source required. I'm going to need a source for that one. But, like, we if you recall, we initially did lockdowns as well. We just refused to actually do them, right? Like, we never actually did a proper lockdown. We never actually committed to it, because the capitalists were aware that if we actually committed to it, it would actually destroy capital, because capital is the problem, right? And I think, like, this is the reason why we can't get support behind the NDP and the Liberals, because we know that they'll just subserviate themselves to capital. Like, nobody wants to, they have not worked anywhere in the world. Anyway, I'm not going to get it. What, the lockdowns? No, that's obviously false. Like, verifiably false, dude. Like, yes, they very obviously have. Lots of Western media has been demanding China open up their economy to COVID. Yeah, undoubtedly for imperialist reasons. Yeah, of course. Like, and China has no reason to pay attention to us. Like, we're on a very massive decline, right? We're on a massive decline here, and it's, I think, the thing that's going to take a lot of people by surprise. And it is gonna, like, it always happens this way, right? Is that, like, let pull off the gas pedal on that kind of accusation, Watson. Like, it's C.R. Strifey's got his opinion, and I think It's not. My opinion on these conversations is that they are worth having. Like, it's a trauma we experienced. Like, this is a trauma. It's a massive trauma that we're undergoing, and people have the right and should be able to safely voice dissenting opinions, or not even dissenting opinions, just concerns, and be skeptical of things, right? Like, the issue, like, if we have as a collective, like as a global collective, done like a big lockdown, and everybody had to just like, and I mean, I'm honestly more or less of the opinion that like, doing a lockdown is exactly what we need to do for climate change, right? That, like, over the pandemic, we reduced our emissions. It was like the only time we've actually reduced our emissions. And how did we do it? By stopping all of this nonsense. Just stopping this crazy, dumb bullshit, right? And the reason why, like, localized lockdowns are not helping is because if your neighbor is just letting it all go rampant, well, what are you supposed to do, right? Johns Hopkins University said the lockdown restrictions prevented 0.2% of deaths. It's not just about deaths, though. Like, I mean, talk to somebody like Eric about this, right? It's not just about deaths. Like, this is a disease. Like, this is a virus. It has a pretty major impact on the lives of people who actually get this, right? And I mean, like, what we're talking about here with this UBI thing is just like, yeah, we need a restructuring of the society in serious ways. Yep. While other Chinese cities had successful lockdowns, Shanghai botched their logistics. That's the one Western media focused on. Like, it's... And, like, we are going to experience more pandemics. And, like, when the next pandemic comes through, like, the people who are against the idea of lockdowns, and the people who are against the idea of public health and safety measures, right? Now they're getting organized, right? Now they're getting organized. They're finding one another, right? So the next time the next pandemic happens, like, let's say the monkeypox just kicks right off, right? And it's just like, oh shit, like, literally it's as contagious as COVID is, right? Let's just say that occurs, right? And the telling people to stay inside their house under penalty of law is fascism? No, it's not. Like, it really, truly is not. Like, public health and safety measures are not fascism. Like, we can have a discussion about whether or not there was overreach, and certainly there was. Like, certainly there was. I myself witnessed it. Like, certainly there's overreach, and certainly it's an opportunity for people to take advantage. But, like, my concern about what we're seeing is that we're not acting as a community. We're not acting as a collective. We're not acting under the. We're not acting under the. Even the auspice that we should act as a community, right? Like, it's the division and the divisiveness of what's going on. Like if everybody just acts as an individual and does what they want, then it's hopeless. And the next time the next pandemic sweeps through, right? Like, the well-organized anti... I don't even know what to call them. Like, anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, like, anti-public health. Like, it's going to be... Right. but I mean, like, there's living your life, and then there's like, if you were in the midst of a war talking this way, no one would take you seriously, right? And for many people, this is a major health concern, and like we're seeing that it's obviously the case, and the truth is that we're not really able to respond rationally to these things. Like, that's what it's coming down to. Like, we're pretending like it's about personal freedom. Well, what about the personal freedom of somebody to not die from a virus? Like, why does that not count, right? Like, I just feel like it's a very childish sort of response. Like, oh no, we have to, like, not participate in capitalism for a second. Like, oh no, like well, okay, so now they're free to stay inside while a virus runs rampant. So basically, like, you're saying they're free to be prisoners, right? So, like, who's the fascist now, right? Like, who's the fascist now? Like, that's not much different than saying, like, people are free to quit their job and starve in the streets, right? Like, that's that kind of logic. Like, it's pretty, and, like, it's completely destructive. Like, it's totally self-destructive. What you're espousing it's just totally self-destruction, right? Like, let's let viruses spread throughout the community. Let's do absolutely nothing to protect anybody. Right, let's ensure the maximum amount of damage occurs, and if people don't like it, they can just go hide in their own house and live in fear. Is that what we're talking about now? Like, it's the policy of a failed society, which is what we are, right? This is a failed society. Like, it's going to become extremely obvious extremely soon. What is the article you have? But you don't think that doesn't have something to do with lockdowns and measures? But I think the concern, like, really, like, if a people move together, right? Even if they're wrong, if a people move together, their mental health and their well-being is usually improved, right? That the issue is not whether or not we're moving in the right direction or the right situation. The issue is that there's, like, we're calcified. We're not agreeing. We're not coming to an agreement. We're not accepting anything that anyone says about anything, right? And so there's just a sense of hopelessness because the lockdowns that we did do, which weren't really lockdowns, didn't work because they weren't really lockdowns in the first place. And now there's a virulent aggressive movement against it. And we all know what's going to happen in the next pandemic, right? That these people are organized now and they're not going to tolerate it. So it's going to sweep through and maximize the damage, right? Like, which this is like the live and let live ideology of the libertarian movement, right? Oh, you died, then you were supposed to die. Like, that's all it is, right? Like, we're entering, like, a real, like, might makes right sort of period, right? That if you die, you die, basically. Hey, Demand Better, how you doing? People agree with the left on policy, but aren't aware what the left actually offers. I mean, do people agree with the left on policy? We're literally voting Doug Ford in. This is a problem, and elections and revolutions require even more convincing people to adopt risk. I mean, I'm more or less of the opinion that the capitalist system itself will be the great convincing, right? Like, we aren't actually going to need to convince people that the capitalist, like, we could spend 100 years attempting to convince people, and capitalism will get the job done in a day, right? because the truth is that, like, it's the classic conservative ethos, right? If it's happening to you, it's a you problem, and if it's happening to me, it's everybody's problem. That's conservatism 101, right? Like, that's how it works. And this individualist mindset that has infected our ethos is definitely going to lead, like, by its very nature, leads to complete destruction, which is what we're facing. Like, is it going to take the famines? Like, there's still going to be sections of the populace who just retreat into outright fascism and Nazism about it. So, does Murdoch Media have a Canadian affiliation? I'm not sure. Social coordination is evil because it destroys the opportunity for profits. Exactly. Yeah, if you do something for the benefit of the society, and it doesn't make a capitalist money, it has to be clamped down on, right? COVID simply exacerbated the mental health issues within bourgeoisie society. The freedom fighters never talk about the alienation and atomization created by the system. Yeah. Well, I mean, libertarians can't talk about that because they don't acknowledge that there's a system in the first place, right? They don't acknowledge the existence of a system. Like, that's the truth of, like, that's the dark heart and the true failing of libertarianism, is their inability to understand that there's a system. And if you don't acknowledge the existence of a system, then you don't need to talk about how it alienates anybody, right? Like, and mental health concerns that arise from alienation because of this system can be responded with just like a buck up, stand up straight, right? Like, and that's considered a solution. There are equal arguments for collectivism and individualism, but the individualists have gone fundamentalist about it. Like, that's the truth, right? Like, that if you're an individualist right now in this society, you're a fundamentalist, and you, like, the there's no wiggle room, right? That if you have to if the individualist has to sacrifice even one tiny little shred of an iota of any kind of freedom or individualism for themselves, it's considered a tyranny. We're called fascists by these people for saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't just murder a million people in our society by allowing a virus to run rampant, right? And yeah, PPC will be more popular than ever in the next few years. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. The conservatives might actually get them back into the fold. We'll see. Polyev is very convincing, right? Like, he's a very effective liar. Yeah, John, we have no real left. Yeah, we have bourgeois acceptable, bourgeois pseudo-leftists. Yeah, which, I mean, you can see, like, this is the reason, like, people want to see actual change. People have been calling for actual change for, like, forever, right? Like, they want actual change. And they see within the NDP and the Liberals that that's not going to happen, right? Like, they understand that that's the case. So why are they going to vote for it? Mark, we're going to do that at 7, okay, bud? CTV starts their Ontario coverage, 30 minutes, yeah. There are zero arguments for liberalism. Like, what, Amazon needs more money, yeah. Well, the profit motive itself is so, like, as soon as you understand what the profit motive is, it's just like, so instead of breathable air, workable land, livable conditions, food and shelter, any of those things, what matters is this monopoly money we invented. That's what matters. Oh, okay. Like, as soon as you understand, like, that's what we're doing, you see the childishness of our society pretty clear. Like, using money as a tool in order to create all of these conditions, right? That's gone to the wayside, and the money itself is what we're worshiping, right? It's completely destructive. Capitalist media is already preparing scapegoats for the rich. Yeah, I mean, we've heard Justin Trudeau scapegoating immigrants, right? Yep. It point fingers at everybody but the capitalists. That's right. I will sacrifice, as will many. I mean, some. We know there's a bunch of people who won't. And that's what's concerning, right? Like, the inability to see reality, I think, is what's most concerning, right? Take the climate change issue is the issue, right? Like, literally the place is burning down, and people are not at all interested in actually dealing with the crisis in front of them. Like, the house is burning down, and your parents are literally saying, "No, it isn't." I mean, at some point, you got to grab hold of this thing. Like, at some point, there comes a moment where like, something is got to give. Like, are you actually just gonna wait until your own town is burning down? Because that's what's coming. Like, that's what's coming. Like, I don't know why people pretend like anything else is gonna happen. Like, do you think the sun is gonna just like be like, oh, they're trying down there. Look at their electric vehicles, right? No, the sun doesn't give a fuck about that. Like, the sun is going to scour this place, right? And literally when it starts to happen, and it already is starting to happen, we got 30 to 40% of the society that's just going to deny that it exists, right? Like, this is the reality of what's driving all of this, is that we know that people are not going to sacrifice, and also we know that the people who are going to sacrifice are sacrificing in vain, because it's not going to actually resolve the issue. Like, yeah, money is a religion, for sure. We never had a real response to the pandemic that had any intention of actually dealing with public health. Yeah, that's why this went on so long. We never had a zero COVID policy, yeah. Zero COVID has failed everywhere it's been tried. Ireland, New Zealand, Australia couldn't do it. China did. I mean, but there's a reason why it couldn't, right? Like, if you're trying to do zero COVID and the guy next to you is literally just a petri dish, right? Like, there's a reason it didn't work. It's simply not enough to say, like, oh, well, this one place tried it and it didn't work, well, we do nothing, right? Like, I feel like you're just kind of absolving responsibility and just pretending as though there aren't larger systems in play. Like, we know who bears the brunt of the responsibility. Like, we know what's going on. The West, as usual, has pursued the path of chaos and self-immolation and self-destruction, and essentially assured further pandemics and further destruction. Like, literally, Bill Gates has withheld vaccines from people. Like, literally, the international community, which exists in order to attempt to alleviate these kinds of things, have done everything they could to withhold the solution from as many people as they can, and they've done it for money, right? Like, so it doesn't, like, it's this idea that you're pointing a finger at someone else is what I find to be so odd. Like, that's what's so odd to me. Like, we are obviously the problem. Like, we are obviously the problem, and other countries are trying to do are trying to make it happen and are trying to make it work. But the idea that you're pointing at them and saying, "Oh, it didn't work." Well, why didn't it work? Right? There's a reason why it didn't work. John, isn't that the argument by the right regarding environmental action? Yeah, no one else seems to be doing anything, so why should we? Yeah. Well, if they acknowledge it exists in the first place, right? Which denialism is a big part of it. Like, the religious ethos of capitalism has seized hold, right? And you can't. There's actually a really good article that I've got here. That's not the one. Like, people are struggling because what's happening is confronting their worldview. Oh, where is it? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm the greatest at this. Oh well, I'll stumble on it, I'm sure. Like, the worldview of capitalism is collapsing, and people can't handle this. They don't know what to do about it because to them, their god is being destroyed, right? Like I know for myself when I attempted to, when I went on the journey to that led to the destruction of my fundamentalist Christianity, it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't done once in a day, right? It wasn't like somebody created like a logical argument and I went, oh, that's correct. Oh, I guess I'm not a fundamentalist anymore. Like it was a long journey that required a lot of introspection, a lot of self-sacrifice, and a lot of acceptance, right? A lot of personal acceptance, a lot of personal growth. And we live in a society that actually punishes people for doing that, right? That if you actually pursue the objective of personal growth in order to, outside of like financial growth, like if you grow yourself financially, you're considered like a saint. And it doesn't matter if you're a slaver, doesn't matter if you exploit millions of people, doesn't matter if you like literally go into war and kill people. If you're doing it for money, you're considered good in this society. This is false to say it didn't work. We see those places had the lowest rates of the virus. Even here in PEI, we have a zero COVID policy. Worked for months. Yeah. Ethos, class conscious, communism. The problem, as I see with society, we care about the appearance over substance. People only care what others think, basically, instead of doing anything that matters, that changes, that lasts. Tinker, how you doing, bud? I'm feeling a bit grumpy today, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, it is a sad day today. Like, we're watching Ontario self-immolate. Like, there's just... And like, gleefully. I think that's the part of it that makes it really horrifying. Is the glee by which people are... And the delusion surrounding... Like, yeah, the conversation that's happening in regards to the disabled, for example... Right? Like, there are lots of people who genuinely believe that the best thing to do for disabled people is abandon them. That they'll get jobs, right? Oh, they'll get jobs and then they'll live their best selves. And how dare you? I've got these psychos saying to me, how dare you think that these people can't ascend? And it's like, they're like literally they're just like go to an ODSB office, right? These people are bound into wheelchairs. They're like 50, 60 pounds. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're just living in this incredible delusional gaslighting space that is going to lead to an enormous spike in homelessness. An enormous spike in homelessness. Like we're talking like hundreds of thousands of people. Like it's going to be vicious. It's going to be absolutely barbarous to watch. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this is going to happen, right? Like, you just got to be a deluded loser, like Ford voters are, and you can believe that, oh well, this is an individual problem. Like, what are you fucking talking about? It obviously isn't. Yeah. The problem I see with society, we care about the appearance over the substance. People only care what others think. I mean, yeah, that is an issue, right? The only thing I'm going to enjoy is watching Ford fumble his way through a collapse of the economy and have no good answers. Maybe this will be the death knell of conservative power in Ontario. No. Like, the thing that you gotta remember, right? Like, it's Ford's support is strong and conservative support is strong, right? Like, even guys like Tim Hudak still got like 20 to 30% of the vote, right? Like, the desire for fascism here in Ontario is strong. It's very, very strong. And the people who want to spread misery and suffering into the populace want to do that. Like, and with this election, we are going to see kind of an unrepentance about it. Like, it's going to be obvious. Like, they're not going to be secretive about it. They're not going to be sly about it. They're not going to create a secret language or anything like this. They're going to be very overt that, like, and for God's sakes, like, it's the disabled conversation is where it is manifested first in its most obvious form, right? Like, literally disabled people should just get jobs. That's literally the statement. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a spike of homelessness. You're going to see a spike of the use of the maid service, this eugenics program that we have here in Canada, right? You're going to see this enormous abandonment of huge sections of the populace. Like, it's not going to be small, right? And of course, our mainstream media is going to do everything they can to shuffle it under the rug and pretend like it's not happening. Right, because that's what they're for. That's the point of the media, is to ensure that these narratives never actually get put out there, right? That, like, so like the Toronto Star recently did an article talking about it was how disabled people are suffering, right? And they decided to hyper focus in on somebody who has it was a floating anxiety disorder, right? So, like, the one type of disability that like, why not go find somebody who's literally bound to a wheelchair, who can't get out of it without assistance, or something like this, right? No, you got to find, like, the one type of disability that really maximizes the conservative argument of, like, that's not a disability, right? Like, the whole point is to downplay and hand wave so that when the eugenics system starts to really hum, you can just ignore it. Yeah, when the inevitable failure happens, the Fordites are forced to deal with this. The best you'll hear is, we didn't have a choice. Yeah. No, that's what it is, right? Because they believe that their money matters more than human life, right? And, like, oh, we had to cut costs, right? Bex. Hi, comrade. I saw your post on channel, on Reddit, so hello to you, Bex. I'm glad that there's a new person in here, man. I gotta tell you. The fear grips me every time. I'm like, oh man, are we gonna grow? Are new people gonna come? Welcome, Bex. I hope that you find a place here. This is a solidarity movement. We are dumping our anxiety, and boy howdy, did you pick the day to come on in. We are literally we're crying about the decline of Ontario into a pretty oblique and obvious fascism. Like, a pretty, like, we don't need to pretend, right? Like, we're going to see it in the disabled community pretty viciously. Like, the spike of homelessness, the spike of the usage of the maid system, it's going to be very cruel. I think cruel is the word to use. And the cruelty that I'm seeing throughout the conservative base is pretty shocking to witness, just on a basic human level. So I hope you're here to participate. I hope you're here to have a good time. And please don't hold back on us. We try very hard to be open to dissent. So, John, we should start betting about which town or city will burn first this summer. Can't take bets. I'll get shut down for gambling. But, like... So, let's go to Lytton. Lytton was the last city to burn down, right? Or the last town, rather, let's be honest. So, Lytton burnt down. So, I mean, like, who are the candidates, right? Falls Creek... Canada Bar, right? Like, it's going to be around this area, right? Oh, BC wildfire map, of course. BC wildfire map. This will be informative. Interactive map. Here we go. Like, we should be honest about these. Oh yeah, hasn't really kicked off. Hasn't been hot enough. But like, you know, Kitimat Village. It's already starting, right? Last year there was like 300 wildfires, right? It was absolutely brutal, and my feeling is like the populace is only really going to start caring about this in serious ways if a place like Kamloops goes. That's when the populace may, and I say may because we're living in such a diluted time, right? Like there's so much delusion in the populace right now. Like literally Santa is real levels of delusion. Like Lytton was a climate change disaster. What happened in Vancouver with the flooding was a climate change disaster. If a place like Sun Peaks goes, or Chris Creek, or Clinton, or any of these places, like the general populace isn't even going to hear about it, and they're not going to care, right? But if it's a place like Kamloops, like population 100,000, right? That you can't really ignore that. I mean, we will, obviously, because that's the type of people we are. But once you have like 100,000 people experiencing a disaster like that, like just the force of their own experience is going to at least affect British Columbia, right? And there's a reason why British Columbia has been, like, we can critique the NDP government there, and we should. But there's a reason why they're pretty far to the left in terms of environmental issues, right? There's a reason why the province refuses to let pipelines through. There's a reason why, because they know that they're the ones that are going to burn down, right? Meanwhile, Alberta is sitting over here being like, burn, baby, burn. Let's go. Just drill, baby, drill, right? Money matters more than life. Doom to Bloom. Toy Store John. Oh man, there's a name I haven't gotten by for a long, long time. Over under on how long it takes for Dougie Dum Dum to drop the corporate tax rate to 10% to create relief for the job creators, of course. Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't already happened, honestly. Like, we're heading into a period of extraction. So, like, I consider 10% to be quite high. Like, Ford knows that this is probably it for him. That the first term was really just sort of planting the seeds for the extraction, and now this next term is going to be the mass extraction, right? And we all know how this is going to go. Like, you're going to see the conservatives pilfer and plunder as much as possible, and then the liberals will get in and keep it at that level, so that the populace grumbles and grumbles and grumbles, and then the conservatives get in and begin the plunder anew, right? That's the way it works. Do you remember what episode the Chapo stuff we're talking about, the militia stuff, and it was Patreon a free episode? I don't remember, dude. Sorry, I don't. The Chapo boys are just guys I listen to from time to time. I don't remember what episode it was. Sorry, man. It's they're literally the only guys I've been hearing talking about it, though. And of course they're not like pounding the pulpit. They know they'll get removed from the platform if they do. Canada joined the THAG thing where we promised a minimum 15% corporate tax rate. He'd have to fight it federally. Oh, yeah. Ford couldn't do what he really wanted to do, or why it was implanted because of the pandemic. Now he's going to make up for lost time. Yeah. Good question though. Good to look out for that, because like, what's coming in the United States? Like, and you can see it, right? The zeitgeist is building. Right, the mass energy, right? Like the mass shootings that are happening are ramping up, right? It's going to get, and those are going to get more and more aggressive, and also more and more organized, right? Like we don't want to admit that what's happening in the United States is a civil war, and we don't want to admit that the mass shootings are part of that civil war. And eventually what's going to happen is that you're going to get organizations come out of it, and named organizations, right? And then suddenly we'll be talking about these named organizations, and they'll begin to organize with one another, and the Civil War will become official at some point, right? And like the United States is 100% going to tear itself apart. there's no peace movement. There's not even an artistic movement happening in the United States to counter what's coming, right? And it's going to be like a wildfire. And once the famines begin seriously, once most people can no longer access the fossil fuel economy, desperate people who have nowhere else to go or nothing else to do, who know they don't have a future in a country that's awash with guns, like, the outcome is pretty predictable, right? And we're seeing it becoming very serious. Yeah, a lot of California is going to be gone to wildfires as well. And I mean, like, the desert's increasing. Like, the desert's increasing. I mean, for goodness sakes, one of my favorite links to bring up in regards to the climate change conversation, right? Boop, 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 right? Like, the decline of, like, the water table, like, the famines are going to be serious, right? The loss of fresh water sources is going to be serious. We're talking about, like, mass migrations. We're talking about, and I was talking about this earlier, like, your conservative types and your liberal types, frankly, so your liberal conservative types are going to be caught completely off guard by all of this. Like, they're so entrenched in their delusion that when the mass unrest begins, they're going to be blown away at the violence that it takes. Like, it's going to like, we're talking about the type of people who, like, clutched their pearls over the Black Lives Matter movement, and the what's coming is going to make the Black Lives Matter movement look like baby's first protest. Like, we're talking about, like, a spike in violence that is going to be uncontrollable. I think that's the major word that is going to be used, right? It's going to be uncontrollable. Like, a couple of days ago, I played that video of the WEF psycho who was saying that, like, oh, the populace is basically controlled now. Like, the idea that the mass has power, like, that's a 19th century idea. Like, that's not gonna, like, that's how you know these guys are detached from reality and are stupid, right? Like, if you have 1 million armed people who are angrily pursuing any objective, like, unless you're literally talking about dropping bombs on them, which I think that's what they are talking about, it's but, like, even then, like, once the populace becomes ungovernable, once the populace becomes uncontrollable, like, the result is that the power structure fails and is overthrown, and something new takes it over. Because if the people are ungovernable, which is exactly the situation we're looking at, yeah, domestic drone, all that's going to happen, like, for sure. What, you think Jeff you think Jeff Bezos has a blimp full of drones so that he can deliver parcels to Karens? You think the whole Mars thing is just so that oh yeah, we're definitely interested in going to Mars. This certainly isn't the weaponization of space, right? But at the end of the day, the power is the people. Like, that's the thing that these losers don't realize or recognize or understand, is that the people are the power, right? The reason why our economy is failing, the reason why we are in this massive decline, is that we've tricked ourselves into believing that the power is finance, that the financial sector is somehow the power structure, when the reality is that people are your power. And if you don't have people who are empowered to be part of an economy and part of a community, then you're going to collapse, right? Which is exactly what we're looking at. But I mean, this all ties in just to the ethos of white supremacy that's taken over our country, right? Like, or that, shouldn't say taken over. We've always been white supremacists. So we're like, this is the natural consequence of all of this. If you literally disempower the most amount of people you can, jam all of your productive capacity into holes, and pretend as though the problem is like the single mother with food stamps instead of the billionaire hoarding wealth, yeah, your society is just going to collapse. And it's going to collapse for very obvious, straightforward reasons. Like and there's no recovery for us. Like we're already like the OECD already predicts Canada is going to be the worst performing advanced economy, and there's reasons for this, right? There's reasons for this. The Canadian real estate was responsible for nearly half of GDP growth last quarter, right? So literally half of our economic growth here in Canada is just people swapping houses with one another, right? So it's completely false. It's a phony growth. It doesn't have it. It's not real, right? We didn't build anything. We didn't make anything. We didn't create anything. We didn't do anything. We literally just took a house. We took a piece of paper and we took it from one person and gave it to another person and called it growth. Like our economy is failing. We're starting to see even people like Bill Morneau, a previous Liberal finance minister, saying, former finance minister Bill Morneau criticizes Liberals' economic policies in first public speech since leaving political life, right? And so now that he's actually a citizen and he's actually living in the country he's helped destroy, he's realizing, this economic system doesn't actually work, because it doesn't. It's designed to fail. It's supposed to fail. Well, BLM was baby's first protest in like an entire generation of people, at least. That's fair. That is actually fair, Oddity. Howard Hampton knew Ray was a liberal from suggesting to have libs support them for 90s election, Yeah, dude was a liberal psyop. Yeah, it seems to be the case. I wonder if that means the federal rate can be cut without crossing the agreement. Yeah, I think this Olnec Ontario election, I get it, is going to show voting, democracy, whatever you want to call it, is over. The only way to go on the streets and surround them. I mean, it's... we at least need to show that there is a form of politics outside of electoral politics, right? Like, it's because electoral politics is obviously failing, like pretty black and white. Yeah, once the populists become ungovernable, the ruling class turn to open fascism immediately. Yeah, no, but that's the way it's going, right? Yeah, your argument is valid, but you breathed air in a capitalist society, so therefore. Hey, Cotton, how you doing, bud? Finance, insurance, real estate needs to be nationalized, regulated. Yeah, of course it does. Most of these things need to be regulated, right? Most of these things need to actually be focused in on. All right. Has this gone anywhere? Has this done anything? Are we seeing any kind of movement? Nah, not yet. Cultural hegemony, capitalist rationalization, and how ideology bonds people to imperialist propaganda. You know what? I wanted to read this, but now I'm looking at it, I'm like, fuck this. I'm so grumpy. You're right, Silverlights has got it right. We know what we're doing. For those of you who are new to the channel, we do a number draw. David Lynch, for some reason, decides to do a number draw, between 1 and 10. Me and Mocked, we're ride or die on a 7. We've been that way for a while now. Let's go. John Smith, good to see you, bud.
Here we go for today's number.
Got a bunch of 7s.
It's June
bunch
2,
of 7s.
2022.
Oh,
10
Compton,
balls.
I'm so sorry to hear this, bud. We'll talk about this.
Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10.
Numbers 1 through 10. Here we go.
Swirl
Today's the day.
Numbers.
Today's the day. Bex is in with a 2. Just watch, it's a 2 now. Beginner's luck. Here we go.
A number.
Here we go. 7.
Today's number
You'd think
is
by now, statistically, 8.
8.
That's a tease. Hasn't he been doing this to us the whole time? Hasn't he been doing this to us, Mock, the whole time? We've been picking 7s. He's been doing like 6s and 8s. 6s and 8s. Teasing us, teasing us, teasing us. Lynch is not a fash. Ugh. Yeah, doom to bloom. Doom to bloom. Winner, chicken dinger. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, guys, I hate to do this to you, but I gotta let the chair. So chair stream. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Ugh. I gotta do better about remembering to get a video for you guys. Don't like dead air. All right, we got a new person in the chat, so I'm gonna hit him with my best. Hello, chair. I know. The chair's really smart. Chairman Jono. That's funny. All right. Gotta sleep another month inside this car. The wage they pay me with don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt. And nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The chaos and the misery, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry. I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine. He knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries. I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies. They cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. God damn. God damn. Alright, I'm gonna do one more. I'm doing this one because there's a newbie in the chat. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun don't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. Antarctica is covered in ice and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes and sweeps me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? When everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in Antarctica is covered in And I still believe that we can do it. Even now. Even now, on this day, where we're voting against the very concept of our own survival, even now, I still believe that we can do it. The earth created us and created the garden that we live in, that we use for our survival. The trees, the air, the water, the animals, the food. It created it for us and then created us. It's more than capable of healing itself. It doesn't need our assistance. The idea that we need to do something in order to fix this problem is a brainworm from an idiotic child. All we have done is try to destroy this place, and the being that spawned us is more than capable of confronting us on these issues. And the truth of this climate change catastrophe that we are propelling ourselves towards is that if we want to be here to witness the absolute miracle of the earth healing itself, all we have to do is stop. There's no mystery. There's no secret. There's no code. All we have to do is stop. I have to remind myself we are heading towards a very dark moment. I don't think that can be argued against. But these dark moments don't persist. That the human spirit and the spirit of reality shines brighter than our momentary glimpse into it. The earth and the universe has rules. Both don't need us. And if we don't obey their rules, they will take us out by various of ways. You should probably just stop eating Big Macs generally, Grinning. Gotta tell you. You should probably just stop eating Big Macs generally. I know for me, like anytime I eat a Big Mac, I suffer for like a week. I'm still dealing with that Big Mac a week out. So you should probably do yourself a favor. Our relationship with the earth and the universe is interesting. Oh, you're a vegan, it's a joke. Good for you, Grinning. Good for you, bud. I can't. I try to be a vegetarian, and vegan is just like, I can't. It's the one step too far for me. You know? I admire those who do it, but our relationship with the earth is interesting this way, because, like, we have a skill set. We have the ability to enter the abstract space, to communicate with one another in the abstract, and then manifest those abstractions into the real world. We do it every single day. It's called money, right? Money is an abstraction. And the true failing of our society is that we have said of this incredible gift, of this incredible ability, we shouldn't use it. That we should let the free market decide, right? Let chaos reign. And that, to me, is the true failing of our society. That we don't, we pretend like capitalism is natural, while denying the extremely natural skill sets that we have. Be like a beaver not building dams, right? Oh, the free market of the river system will decide. Well, it'll wipe you away. That's what it'll do. Right? Be like a, I don't know, like a raccoon not using his thumbs, you know? We've got this incredible ability. And the dimming of it, right? What the colloquial term for what I just described is imagination, right? Entering the abstract space, communicating in the abstract space with others, and then manifesting it into the real world. That's called using your imagination. And our society has done everything it can to demonize the Imagineers, to demonize the people who dared to go into the educational facilities, dared to believe that they could exist in the world by using their imagination, and strengthening their imagination and understanding what the imagination is and what the quality of our existence is, or to study the humanities, to study the emotional state of humans, right? And all of this gets mocked and derided because it's not useful for capitalists, quite to the contrary, right? An educated, empathetic, compassionate people who are content with their own existence and don't need to buy products from capitalists is the worst thing possible for the capitalist death cult, right? They need people to be dumb, illiterate, unable to understand how or the value of entering their imaginative space, their abstract space, right? That's what they require. Because if people were capable of using their imagination to any degree, well, probably the first thing that they would imagine is a world without capital, a world without capitalism. Like, most people are spending most of their lives grinding away into this capitalist death cult that is actively structuring itself to betray and destroy everything around them. And the reason why people refuse to accept that reality is because they can't imagine it. Even though all of our media, like the post-apocalyptic future porn at this point, it's just fucking jerking off to it, is so ubiquitous. And the only way that we are permitted to articulate a salvation from a kind of apocalyptic moment is through savior worship, which is Marvel movies and Star Wars, right? That, like, oh, some savior will come, the chosen one will come, right? It's not going to happen. That's not how it works. There's no such thing as a chosen one. Like, there's no such thing as some God descending and coming and solving the problems. That's quite literally not how it works. And what we need right now more than anything is a return to our imagination, to take seriously the imaginative thoughts that come out of our internal beings and who we are. I just saw a conservative post on Facebook complaining that Vancouver eliminate overnight draft via public libraries, and the response, in a few years, Vancouver will run out of books. Yeah, that's just so stupid. Like, this, the public library system is, like, anytime anybody wants to talk to me about, like, the failure of systems and, systems won't work and all, and government can't run anything, it's like literally the library, dude. Like, why don't people just take books out from the library and then never return them? Why do people just not take books? Why do they return them in the first place? Oh, it's because they have an understanding that this is a collective system for the collective benefit of everybody, right? Like, and it's like we could do this for lots of things. Like, we could have a library system for lots of things. And we just don't. We just don't, because we've capitulated so much. Because we're just so incapable of trusting one another, right? And, like, if the libraries didn't exist and we tried to create them, people would be like, "What are you, commies?" And I of course would be like, "Yeah, of course." So, a spot of good news. I'm not trying to keep everything bleak. Canadians with disabilities getting a new benefit, but critics say it's coming late with few details. So, because of the provincial government's incompetence and inability to respond, it's falling on the shoulders of the federal government. And the voices are getting loud enough now that even a detached prince like Trudeau has had to respond in some way. And so the federal government now is introducing legislation to create a monthly benefit payment for working age Canadians with disabilities. Right? Like, about 5 years too late, if you ask me. But it is happening. It is occurring. Didn't one of the provinces decriminalize drugs? I don't know about that. I know that there is a decriminalization drug bill that is being tabled on the federal level that the NDP are supporting. We'll see if the Liberals go along with it. There's still very much like a virulent strain of like, if you legalize all the drugs, then we'll fall into drug use and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, BC is the one that's been leading the way, certainly Vancouver, right? They've been using a lot of evidence-based facts and they actually care about, like, oh, let's take a look at countries that have actually done it. Like, this is the part of the conversation that kills me the most, is that, like, there are full-scale countries, like, not counties, like, not there are countries. There are countries that have already done exactly what we're talking about. And we have seen what has happened, right? Every single time. We have witnessed it. Like, you're not talking about a pilot project. You're not talking about like they're trying to do with the basic income. Just put it in perpetual pilot projects, right? Like, you're not talking about, like, small scale, like a university did a thing, right? Like, you're talking about a country that was experiencing, like, Portugal is a great example. Portugal was literally experiencing people, like, overdosing on, like, play school equipment and shit like this. Like, literally, like, people, like, ODing of heroin in broad daylight, in front of schools. Like, it was a nightmare, right? A total fucking nightmare. And and they got so desperate because they were running out of, they were trying to do what all fascists do, which is police it, right? Which is a failure from the outset. You end up spending 10 times the amount, you get worse outcomes, right? And so they finally just said, fuck this, and they just decriminalized it all. They decriminalized it all, and they pursued a path of treating it like it was a health crisis instead of a crime crisis, and it instantly worked, like, immediately. It wasn't even close in terms of a comparison, right? And it's for very simple, basic reasons. If people don't feel like they're going to go to prison for being addicted to a substance, they're more likely to get help. And if people can go to a place like a clean needle site or something like this, they're more likely to get help, right? And it didn't increase the amount of drug use, quite the opposite, right? It declined it every single time. It's always the case. And there's no mysteries to this, right? People who feel like they're part of a community that's actually trying to help them instead of a community that's actually alienating them and trying to destroy them are more likely to want to join that community. Like, one of the most damaging studies that was ever done on the idea of drug use was the classic rat study, right? That back in, like, the 80s, a scientist did a study with a rat where he took a rat and he put him in a pen, and there was one bottle that had water and one bottle that had heroin, and the rat would inevitably get hooked on the heroin and then die of a heroin overdose. And so this is what they used to press on the criminalization idea, because, oh, heroin's addictive and you can't not do it, right? You can't not do it. Decades later, another scientist got to thinking, well, there's a factor that you're not actually putting in, which is isolation. Like, you literally took a rat, put it in a pen with nothing to do except heroin, and then, big surprise, the lonely, isolated rat dies of a heroin overdose, right? And so he reran the study. But instead, he created a rat heaven. So there's, like, 100 rats in like a pen with a bunch of stuff to do, right? All the wheels, all the kind of stuff, so on and so forth, right? Like a little rat community where all the rats could live in safety and be rats with one another. And then he took one of the rats out of this pen, right? Put it and reran the simulation, right? Sure as shooting, the rat does the heroin, right? Starts to proceed down the path that you expect, but then he takes the rat out of isolation and he puts it back in the rat heaven. So if it's just a chemical connection that has nothing to do with societal things, then it should continue doing the heroin. But every single time it's run, the rat stops doing the heroin. Why? Because he has a community. He's got something to do. He's got something else going on, right? And on top of that, the guy then runs it, but he runs it in the community. So he puts a heroin bottle and he puts a water bottle, right? And invariably every rat tries the heroin because they're like, what's this, right? And then they trip out. They have the experience, right? But then they stop because they're like, yeah, okay, like once, fine, sure, but we're not going to continue this. right? Like, this isn't our lives. This isn't what we're doing. And it was this study that really propelled people forward into thinking, like, oh yeah, maybe there's larger collective societal issues at play when it comes to this kind of thing. And yet, yeah, irregardless of all the evidence, irregardless of everything you see, there's still a persistent ethos that exists within conservatives that people who do drugs are bad, and we should throw them in prison. Now, excuse me while I drink a beer, smoke a cigar, these days smoke some marijuana. Like, it's again, if it's happening to you, it's your problem, and if it's happening to me, it's everybody's problem. Yeah, just create a universal benefit. I mean, I'm like this. Like, yeah, study was inconvenient. Yeah. In the comment section, they are saying the only reason that books are returning because of the overdraft fee and not is gone. No one had the incentive to return the books. Yeah, because wanting to ensure that other people have access to the book that you just enjoyed is not an incentive, right? If you lack compassion and empathy, so if you're a conservative voter, you don't understand why people do things to help one another, right? You don't understand the concept of helping someone, right? Like this institution helped me get access to this book, and I would like to continue that trend of other people having access to this book, and so I'll return it, right? And likely, if you're using the library system, then you're going there anyway to get more books and returning them. And you have the concept of community and empathy and basic compassion, which, again, if you're a conservative voter, you lack. So that's the reason they don't understand it. Yeah, helping is cucking yourself, exactly. BC trying to do it. I think BC is trying to do it, yeah. I thought there already was a disability benefit for all Canadians. Nope. It's province by province. There's a local online news, and I'll be. You can correct me by this, Matthias. I'll happily change my tune, but I organize with the disabled people. We do protests. I do protests with disabled people. None of them are talking about a federal benefit. Like what There's a local online news site where I am that always adds stigmatized drug use into its articles. So dumb. Yeah. Like, oh no, people who are abandoned use drugs to feel good about themselves for a minute. Like, I even hate it when people say, like, oh, don't give money to homeless people because then they'll just use it on drugs. And I'm like, what? You're using it on drugs. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, oh no, a person who's homeless wants to feel good for a minute. Like, what the fuck? Like, if you actually gave a shit about those homeless people, you'd stop voting conservative. You'd insist that we actually shelter these people. But we don't actually care about homeless people. Hence the conservative vote. We've been stigmatizing drug use for forever. It's not worked. People are just like rats, right? Well, I mean, we're about as intelligent. I'm actually more or less of the belief that rats are probably smarter than we are. They just lack the ability to enter the abstract space. Like, this is an interesting thing that I've contemplated a lot recently, right? That, like, our skill set is not intelligence, right? Our skill set is being able to enter the abstract space, right? And we take for granted that a lot of work has been done within the abstract space to create, like, a language, right? Like, this language that we have, right? It's something that we're all building together and maintaining together, right? Constantly, and it can die, right? You can see there are plenty of people in the society who have a vocabulary that's very small, right? But words are power, right? Words allow you to enter the abstract space or to communicate larger ideas very swiftly with one another, and the content. That's very clever content. I like that. I was told we were more like lobsters. You might be right, content. You might be right. But this entering of the abstract space is not intelligence, right? And it's to be determined, right? Like if rats could enter the abstract space with one another and create a language, and there's evidence that shows that there's language within species and things like this, and that they lack one of the other tools that we have that other species don't have is that we have the ability to articulate, right? So we can make a whole bunch of sounds, and those sounds all combine together to make a whole infinite range of things that we can say, whereas other species and other creatures can't. They're limited in that regard. You think like a dog, right? Like even if you had like the super smartest dog in the world, even if it was a dog that was like Einstein, if you had Einstein dog, right? Well, it would never be able to actually articulate itself. It would never actually be able to say the things out loud that it was thinking, right? So we have this interesting combination of skills that we pretend is intelligence, right? But all we're doing is entering the abstract space and articulating our thoughts, and that we call intelligence. But we're not actually that intelligent. If we were, we wouldn't be facing these catastrophes, right? If we were intelligent, we would be like, oh, there's a catastrophe coming, there's an obvious solution, we should just not do it, right? We should just literally like solve the problem. It's right in front of us. But we're not intelligent. We just think we are. The disability benefit is for taxes. It lets people with disabilities earn a bit more money without taxes. It's like the basic amount that everyone gets for taxes. Yeah. Have you seen the LA homeless situation? That's where Ontario is heading. That's exactly right, Tinker. That's a really good, like, the path is clear, right? And it's and of course what conservatives are going to do when it happens is they're going to individualize it, and they're going to pretend like it's everybody's individual responsibility as they actively undercut these people, right? But something like this, like a federal disability benefit, that could actually be a bit of a godsend, depending on where it's set, right? Like if it's a federal disability benefit of like $100, it's not going to matter. But it could be fairly substantial. So we'll see. Has this updated at all? Nah. I mean, more than half of Ontario tenants have been cutting back on food to afford rent. Like, what do we need? What do we need to see, man? What's it going to take? This is an ongoing one that I am, of course, I have a horse in the race, so I am interested in it. The CRTC confirms Internet Bill C11 will regulate user content. The big concern about Bill C11 is that it could mean that, like, a channel like mine, right? A channel like mine could simply not be shown to anyone outside of Canada. Like that's the concern. So like Americans, Europeans, Russians, Chinese people, they just won't be able to see Canadian content. That's kind of the concern. The social media platforms cannot allow Canadian content to enjoy heightened exposure to Canadians without detracting exposure internationally, as it creates an uneven playing field on the platform. Less Canadian content will be shown globally as a result. I'm a touch skeptical of this interpretation of this law, because that's like a clear violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? Like obviously a suppression of a person's ability to speak freely, like fairly straightforwardly. And I'd be very surprised if this interpretation was actually accurate. Like, but we'll see. Who knows? The benefit will be a top-up, bringing people's yearly income between $19K to $22K. Might not see it till 2025. Someone said it'll be $225 a month in BC, $400 in Ontario. Yeah. No, I mean, like, the government, and they're doing, like, the politicization of these sorts of things is built into the structure of the system, right? That, like, the Liberals, for example, when they table this bill in the first place, they're tabling the bill right before the election. And this is a classic Liberal ploy, right? Table a bill that people know, that they know people want, to say, like, oh, look at what we could have done, or look what we could do, right? Vote for us and we'll push it through. right? And they're completely incentivized to just keep this carrot going because people are stupid and they just go along with it. Like, you guys know me, right? Stop voting conservative, stop voting liberal, stop buying into the game, right? And we'll see the same thing, right? Might not see it till 2025. Yeah, they'll just like carrot, 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 and then here's the election. Oh, here's this piece of legislation. Like, it's what they've done with pharmacare. It's what they're doing with the dental plan. It's what they're doing with all of these things, right? Like, they're just jerking us around. Yep, extra 500 seniors got in 2020. An extra 500 makes a difference. Absolutely, absolutely, man. When the margins are as razor thin as they've become, I know if I was making $500, like I'd be over the moon about it. Oh yeah, this is what we're supposed to be expecting. Just 93% probability of the progressive conservatives winning a majority. Like 5% of them winning the most seats, but not a majority. So there's a 5% chance. So it's nice to know that in 5% of the alternate realities that exist, there's at least a conservative minority. Like, I could live with a conservative minority. I gotta tell you that if the conservatives were actually like had the most seats but in a minority position, I'd be like, oh, okay, that tells me that like we've got a problem. Obviously, we've got a problem, but it's not psycho. We're not in a psycho place. But a conservative majority is definitely a psycho place. Yeah, it does make a difference, but they should have that already. Like, it shouldn't be a 2020 thing. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, why is food and shelter not built into the charter? Like, that's my big question. Like, this is the question that people say I'm a communist for asking. Like, food and shelter should be in the charter. It should be a guaranteed right that if the private sector refuses to provide food and shelter for the populace, the government does it. And if the government doesn't do it, then they can be sued, right? Like, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, if the Charter of Rights and Freedoms isn't guaranteeing food and shelter, then it just exists to maintain the power structure of the capitalist class. So you can say what you like and you can complain about it all you want, but they'll still withhold food and shelter from you if you don't sell yourself to their stupid death cult. A conservative minority with the libs holding the balance would still be psycho. Yeah, probably. Like, probably. Here in Ontario, every so often we do get something out of, like, one thing I'll always say, right, on the climate change issue, like, complain all you want about Kathleen Wynne and McGuinty and how they acted in the capitulation to the death cult, but their goal was to reduce emissions and they were successful. Like, sure, it's shitty that they had to do it through this, like, negotiation with these insane capitalists. Sure, it's shitty that they capitulated all this stuff. Sure, as a communist, I wish they had stood up and been like, get fucked. This is what we're doing. Get on board or die. Not literally, but like, get on board or fuck off. And sure, that's what I wanted them to do, but they didn't. But it worked, right? So that's not zero. Like, that's not nothing, right? And now the conservatives, of course, are doing everything they can to destroy that. Emissions are up 400% under Ford. There's a plant. There's a power plant that's about to be decommissioned here in Ontario, and so obviously the conservatives are going to reach for the dirtiest, shittiest possible solution they can come up with because that's the type of people they're, right? Like, honestly, man, I'm at the point now where if somebody were to tell me that they play a lot of Sims, you know, a lot of Sim City. If somebody were to tell me, like, yeah, I play a lot of Sim City and I build a lot of good cities, so I'd take a look at their cities and I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to vote for you because you know how to plan a city. You at least understand the concept of a plan, right? Like, that's the shocking part about all this to me, guys. Like, literally, we're standing here just saying, shouldn't we have a plan? Shouldn't we actually have a plan, you guys? Like, don't you think it might be wise, right? Don't you think it might be smart to actually sit down and like make a plan? Like, don't you think that that's probably a good idea? But the second you start saying, hey, maybe we should have a plan, a bunch of fascist kooks come out, like Peterson, and it's like, oh, well, that sounds like communism. That sounds like communism is a disaster. It always results in a decline of personal freedoms. And, oh my God, the individual must be held sacrosanct. And if you make a plan, then individuals can't exploit the populace and enslave them. Like, it's just like, when did having a plan become a negative in this society? When did it become a bad idea to have a plan? You know? Anything more on this? Man, come on. But the truth is that this isn't actually... Oh, it's the last update was like forever ago. You know what, man? There's got to be a better... There's got to be a better thing than this. No, I don't think that would be well understood. The general populace doesn't actually know anything about Jordan Peterson. Like, not really. Like, certainly not enough that you can meaningfully comment on him and have it land. That's a very niche kind of thing. Like, that's a very kind of niche... Like, anytime I bring up Jordan Peterson, people are like, I mean, I guess I saw something, right? And oh, yeah. Yeah, polls have only been closed for 45 minutes. I want the information now, Watson. Give it to me now. I don't care what the Founding Fathers would have wanted. I don't care if Jesus was a hippie or not. I don't care what Marx prescribed. I can't take living in a world where we're all servants of long dead men. You know what happens if you make a law the Founding Fathers wouldn't like? Nothing. They're dead, and they're never coming back. I'm genuinely envious of countries that can just make whatever laws they want without worrying about how 18th century agrarian noblemen would have seen it. Stop arguing that Jesus loved the poor too. What he loved or didn't love is irrelevant. He doesn't get a say in any of this. We could have a country that isn't shackled to these ghosts if we collectively wanted to. Yeah. But then what will guide us? Reason? Facts? Evidence? Pshaw. Pshaw. Oh yeah, here's one from the Moscow Times. Parts of Ukraine could vote to join Russia in summer. Right? So we're starting to see a bit of a movement to have pieces of Ukraine peel off. And the pieces that we are talking about, a little bit surprising, actually. If we go to Ukraine, one of the pieces, this one's not that surprising. It was something... Oh, do I have to actually look it up? I may. But it was like around this region, right? Which makes sense, right? So you've got Crimea. So you've got like this region. Have I seen these reports that Putin may have terminal cancer? The CIA got him. They got him, guys. They got him with the cancer gun, guys. And then another area is actually this one. Which is, this was actually very surprising to see, that like this region here. But Putin may have terminal cancer, eh? Putin may have terminal cancer. I mean, the CIA does have that cancer gun. I don't know. The denial follows claims. 60, like, let's be genuine about something here, okay? Like, Putin is 69, like he's almost 70, right? Like, and being a world leader is got to be stressful as hell, right? Yeah, the West is going to say all those places were annexed like they always do with Crimea. Yeah. Well, I mean, and let's be genuine, right? Crimea was annexed, right? Like it's let's not fuck about, right? Like the only thing that gives any credibility to Putin going into Crimea and taking it is that the people support it, right? That's the reason why the West shut up about it, is because we ran a shit ton of polls on them. We talked to them a lot, and the Crimean people across the board, like in percentages as high as like 95% in some cases, were like, yeah, we want to be part of Russia, right? And yeah, but this is the narrative that came out of the West, right? Crimea held the vote, but of course they're like, oh yeah, it's a bullshit vote. Like they had a vote, right? And Putin counted the votes himself, I'm sure, right? But the truth is that like Western sources have themselves gone in and polled these people, and the response is, yeah, we want to be part of Russia. We're happy being part of Russia. We're not oppressed. We're not against this idea. We're not fighting against it. We're not organizing against it. We're happy being part of Russia, is the general consensus. And it's generation Y me. It's technically annexation, okay? It's like if I'm gonna put on my fedora, I'm gonna shave my mustache and really get neckbeard about it and be like, it's technically annexation. But you are correct on the other side of it, right? Like, yeah, where were the refugees exactly? No. I'm not fighting you, dude. I'm not. We're on the same page. We're on the same page. The people of Crimea wanted Russia to come in and seize control, and Russia came in and seized control, and the people of Crimea are happy about it, for sure. Technically an annexation, but they were in favor of it. So I'm being a bit of a twit. I admit. I'm being a bit of a twit. I mean, your sources for this are the Star, right? The Daily Star. Yeah. I mean, but honestly, like if I love that they call him Mad Vlad. Well done. That's good. I gotta tell you, right? I like it. Mad Vlad. I like it. But I mean, ooh, plus they got that super cute prosecutor after. Well, generation, why me? You got a name? Let's look her up. Let's go. Let's do it. Apparently Queen Lizzie, and to call her Jubilee short today. Yeah, she's old, dude. Like, she's old. Like, this is the thing. Like, this isn't much of a story to me. Like, Putin's old. Like, we all get old. We all die. Something's got to take us, right? Like, if it's terminal cancer that gives him 3 years, that means he was 72 when he died. Like, that's pretty decent. It's like there are leaders who die earlier than that, right? Like, and everybody dies. Like, it would be a bit odd in terms of its timing, right? A bit sus in terms of its timing, right? Like the CIA with its cancer gun, right? Like, sure, but like, this is me. Okay, oh, hey guys, Putin died. Did you hear? People die. It would be interesting because, like, it would create the obvious power struggle that comes after, right? Like that's what would be the most interesting about it, is that there would be this power struggle that would occur afterwards, and you essentially would have a power struggle between the oligarch class that still persists within Russia, and kind of the rising Stalinist left that seems to be coming up, right? And that would be the big power struggle. I suspect the oligarchy would win because they have the resources and the capability, right? And the arms. But all right, we're about to learn something here about generation. That's what we're gonna do. Yeah. Hard to argue, dude. Hard to argue. She looks like Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? She looks like Willow. Yeah, I get it. And they're doing like anime things of her. This is hilarious right here, where they've animated her. That's funny. Yeah, I feel you, bud. I feel you. I get it. I get it. We are of a mind. Yeah, really worried about how Putin will pass the torch. Well, like, there's something about Russian leaders, man. They don't seem to care about this, right? Like, Russian leadership doesn't really seem to think about passing the torch. They just kind of are like, and this was as true of like Stalin as it was like Yeltsin, as it will be of Putin. They just seem to really be like, well, this is my tenure, Khrushchev out. They don't seem to really care that much about the idea of passing on the torch, right? They're not like China in that regard, where China is constantly in this perpetual like passing of the torch and preparing to pass the torch and preparing. Did they, Watson? Did they care about passing torches in the Soviet Union? Did they? Like, think about the passing of the torch from Lenin to Stalin, right? Like, the passing of the torch from Lenin to Stalin resulted in one of the great divides in communist history, right? Like, it's not like Lenin had sort of set the table and been like, this is the next guy, may you have my blessing, and like, and it was like a clean transition with like a unified kind of understanding, right? Like it's pretty rough, right? Like one of the great critics of the Soviet Union was Trotsky, right? Like Trotsky was one of the great critics of the Soviet Union after that event. So would you call that a successful passing of the torch? I don't know if I would. I remember the angst when Brezhnev wasn't seen for a few weeks. I don't know that I understand the reference, to be honest. Oh, we got a guy is talking in the right-hand corner. Something serious must be happening. Anyway. Yeah, if Putin died of cancer, it would be an interesting moment. There was that huge power struggle between Khrushchev and the pro-Stalinist or Gorbachev and Yeltsin. Yeah, I mean, like, it just seems like, do I ever want to see the most insane eyebrows of all time? Leonid Brezhnev, let's go. Insane eyebrows. These are big promises, dude. These are big promises you're making. Oh, I remember this guy. Dude, yes. OP delivers, man. Well done, Watson. Well done. Look at this guy. I don't know why, but I look at this guy and his eyebrows and immediately I'm just like, Russian. Definitely. Like, this is definitely Russian right here. Yeah, the Soviet Union, like, they have their own internal power, like, their own way of doing politics. But it doesn't actually seem as though they're that interested in maintaining a long-term project. It's kind of like it's like the Americans. Like, the Americans aren't really that interested in maintaining long-term projects, right? They're just a fucking clusterfuck in America, and so there isn't really any sense of like the passing of the torch, right, in any kind of meaningful, serious way, and it's all just let the chaos of the free market decide. And I feel like the Russians have that kind of same thing. They have that same. Like if you want to talk about a country that's actually trying to like actually pass the torch, you are talking about China. Like the passing of the torch between Mao, Deng, and Xi Jinping, while not always clean, like there's pretty strong evidence to suggest that Mao was not happy with the direction that Deng took China. I think that's pretty obvious. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't a successful transition. And the institution of the National People's Congress seems pretty developed in order to facilitate this idea that projects that are in motion as power transitions continues to go along. That if someone were to take power in China and then start kiboshing programs, I think that would be very surprising. That's what would be very surprising to see in Chinese politics and how China operates. The idea that there would be a guy who would come in, like think about Doug Ford, right? Doug Ford comes into power, immediately destroys 700 climate change 700 climate change platforms, just destroys everything that his predecessor built. Like, to see that kind of thing exist in China, I think would be very surprising to see, especially like when you consider like these other fellows who are not very well known that Ligandis is rightly putting down, because it wasn't Deng straight to Xi Jinping. That's correct. That Zhang and Hu are not very well known because they seem to rule by consensus, right? Like they didn't come in. They didn't come into power in order to be like the guy, the way that Xi Jinping is, for sure. And they really served kind of a short term. And it seems like most people think of these guys. No, but you're right about this. Like, and it seems like Mao didn't trust Deng, and Deng didn't trust these. But I think the more I look at this phenomenon, the more I look at it as like, yeah, of course the leader of the country is looking at the people who are coming up with a skeptical eye. Like, are you going to destroy the stuff I've built? Like, of course they're going to be like that, you know? And you watch, like, even Chinese art has this kind of archetype of, like, the old master who's mistrustful of the young student, right? And is skeptical of what they are going to do with his legacy. And that the story is that the master eventually cedes, like the student becomes the master, right? But in reality, that doesn't happen, right? That's why we tell a story about it, right? That's why we tell a story about it, because that's what we hope would happen. But the truth is that the master, and in this case it's Mao and then Deng and then Zhang and then Hu and then Xi Jinping, who obviously are the masters, right? Of their trade, and their trade is politics. They're always mistrustful. They always are just like that, just like always like that with the squinting eye, all the time. So, but that doesn't seem to have prevented the successful passing of the project. That the project itself seems to be moving forward, and I think it's because the true power. Like we talk a lot about figures. Like we talk a lot about Deng and Mao and Xi Jinping. Like we talk a lot about these guys, but it does seem that in Chinese politics, there's a lot of consensus building, that it seems structurally built into their governance system, that like a guy like Donald Trump can't come in and just be like, I'm Trump, I won this popular vote, and now I'm the king of America, right? Like it's just not gonna happen that way. That it's constantly a system of consensus building, and that like people like Deng and Xi Jinping ascend to the top of this hierarchy that they have purposefully built because they show that they are competent at governing in the first place, but also that they are capable of building consensus in a manner that is acceptable to the people who are involved in the process, right? That seems to be the strength of the Chinese system. That it's not like the American system where like literally just win a popularity contest, convince a bunch of drunken, angry, gun nut rubes that you're the guy and you can be the governor of California or the governor of fucking Florida. It's insane when you think about it. Like, the system that exists in America is as insane as it gets. Literally, a guy like DeSantis, all he's got to do is just convince a bunch of old, like, rich people in Miami that he's going to do good things for Florida, and everybody's going to go, no, that's DeSantis, and then suddenly he's the fucking king of Florida, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants, because he's it's nuts. It's insane the way that the system operates in America. Whereas in China, the system is much more like, okay, congratulations, you got elected, right? You got elected to the hierarchy, right? But you're here, right? And you gotta ascend. So we're gonna put you in like a little village for a minute and see how you do, right? And you'll ascend through the ranks of the hierarchy, right? And it's a system that's constantly vetting, right? It's constantly vetting the people who are elected to it. So there is a democratic aspect to it. You are being elected by a group of people, but if you go there and you show that you're a fucking idiot, or you're a capitalist, or you're completely self-serving, you're probably not going to survive, right? Because the entire system is designed to vet out that kind of behavior, and of course, eventually the hierarchy will become corrupted, and it's likely that the thing that will corrupt it is dogma, right? Like that's always how these sorts of systems operate, is that the system will become corrupted by a dogmatic viewpoint, and that dogmatic viewpoint will cease to align with the reality of what's going on, which will create a counter force, right? And then that counter force will begin to gain power, and then the power structure will reform itself in order to maintain its power in the face of this upswell of power. And then back and forth it'll go in perpetuity until the thing collapses, which eventually it will, because we're humans after all, right? Like, I'm not utopian about this, right? Like, even the Chinese system, which I think, from the systems that I've analyzed, is probably the system that we should be trying to model. Even that one can become corrupted because people are people, right? Once all the reformists were purged, after Deng let in market socialism, they waited to see who would be corrupted. The term limit was then removed. Yeah, that was always the big concern, right? And the big celebration and the big lament, right? The celebration by capitalists was that, oh, he's letting in markets, he's letting in foreign capital, so we win, was what the capitalists said. And then the communists said, oh, he's letting in foreign capitalists, so communism is over, right? Is what the communists said. Whereas Deng was sitting there being like, we got problems, we need solutions, here's a solution to the problem, right? Let some people get rich first, and then we'll smooth it out as we move along, which is what Xi Jinping is doing, right? Xi Jinping ran on a platform of anti-corruption, and has definitely been moving forward on that platform. Except it was local governments who were corrupted many years ago. Yeah, that's usually how it goes, right? It's usually local governments that go. When Xi came in, he cleaned house on them. Yeah, he was elected on a platform of corruption, right? Or anti-corruption, right? So, and there's always going to be ups and downs, and there's always going to go one way and then another, and then up and down. It's always going to go that way, right? But the trajectory seems to be in the right direction. And it seems as though the Chinese system of governance exists to correct, right? Whereas the Canadian and American system seems to exist to fall into entropy, right? To kind of create a feedback loop of the capitalists dominating the system, and then feeding that into the public, and having the public feed that dominance back into the political system, subserviating itself, and then ultimately leading to collapse. Whereas the Chinese system seems very much interested in vetting that out. And sure, there's going to be corruption. Humans are humans. You're in a position of power. You're going to be corrupt. Like, this is the thing that kind of blows me away about how we talk about politics here in the West. Is like, especially as it regards like sex scandals. Sex scandals are the absolute epitome of this, which is, oh, he's corrupt. I'm like, yeah. Like, obviously. Like, we should expect a certain degree of corruption in every politician. Like, there's literally never going to be a politician who isn't somehow corrupt in some way, right? Obviously, they're going to be, right? But we are talking about degrees, right? Like, there's a sharp difference between, like, let's say Xi Jinping. Like, you're telling me that Xi Jinping doesn't leverage the fact that he's the leader of China to get sweet seats in a restaurant or something? Like, you're telling me that Xi Jinping doesn't use his position of power and authority in order to throw his weight around in order to get, like, the best seats at the baseball game or something, or whatever, whatever sport he goes to, like, you're telling me that Xi Jinping isn't using his power in a manner that could be called corruption to achieve certain things for his own personal self. I'm like, yeah, of course he is. And I don't consider that scandalous at all, right? Like, the issue of corruption becomes significant in my view when it becomes systemic. When instead of it being like using my position of authority for my own personal gain, it becomes like integrating a mafia into the political apparatus itself. That's the type of corruption that I'm just like, oh yeah, maybe not. Like somebody like fucking Donald Trump does. So HR dictating your wage is okay, but government bureau setting prices is tyranny. Yeah, exactly, dude. No, exactly. Like if it's a corporation doing it, it's freedom, but if it's the government, it's tyranny, right? Like even though you elect your representatives and you don't elect anybody in the corporate structure, right? It's pretty amazing to see. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. It actually does help. Let people know I exist. Share it. Tell people all about it. Right? We got to grow this thing. We got to constantly be trying to figure it out. Thank you for being here in the first place. If you've got $1 jangling around your pocket, think about donating to the Patreon. Right, the Discord server, it gets you into the Discord server where you can continue these conversations, continue sharing with like-minded individuals, and don't forget to organize locally. Don't forget to contact your local people and your local communists and your local organizations. It's not enough to simply be here. That this is more a solidarity group, right? We're too spread out for it to be anything else. Your objective should be to organize locally and then share your successes and failures with us in order to encourage others to do the same. Like the failure that I'm experiencing right now with organizing with my local communists is that my schedule is so stupid that I can never actually get to any of the events that they're scheduling, right? They're like, hey, come to this thing, and I'm like, I can't. I'm working. Right? Like that's the struggle I'm having, is that I'm struggling to actually connect to ongoing projects myself because I'm such a fucking ridiculous person, right? Like that's my struggle, and I don't know what to do about that because I'm concerned that I'm just a ridiculous person. So there's my struggle with my local politics and my local kind of stuff. I feel like I'm on a different path anyway. I'm going to for anybody who's in Toronto, I'm going to an open mic night. If you're interested in coming, it's literally not going to be my show. It's an open mic night, so expect that. But I'm 100%. I'm so happy to finally be going out and playing my music in front of live people. Right? It's been like years and years, so I'm getting hype, and that seems to be my path. It's cultural reform. Cultural reform. Nothing. Here's $1 billion. Spend it on cop stuff. We're closing your school to save money. Stay out of trouble. Oh, Watson. Yeah, thank you so much. I have been thinking about that. I'm going to reach out to my local representative, Drew Garvey. That's very kind of you, Watson. Thank you so much for your donation. I appreciate that, bud. Yeah. That's nice. You're so nice, Watson. It's so nice. I can't believe that this is happening. Like, this is so stupid. You want to talk about how stupid we are as a people. Government drive to verify CERB payment ramps up. Many told to return some or all funds received. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck up. I'm not really into doing, like, a debate bro thing, dude. Like, I'm really not. Like, I feel like we've got enough of the debate bro stuff happening. Like, I'm much more interested in platforming people in order to funnel people into organization. I'm not interested in being a facilitator of the conflict. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. I'm much more interested in giving people channels by which they can. We can do that independently then. Like, we don't need to have a head-to-head on it. Like, I can talk to Drew, I can talk to Barry, right? They're very open about what their positions are, right? And we can accept the strength and weaknesses of all these positions. It's fine. My position is that either of these positions would be better than what we're doing, frankly. Like, this is something I think about a lot with the leftists. Is like, we are at a stage right now where the failure is so overwhelming and so absurd that literally anything else would be better. Like, literally anything else would be better, and we just get calcified in oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, and it's just like fucking literally pick one. Like, literally pick one and run with it. And don't act like if we don't pick the one that you want to pick, that's somehow a personal slight. Like, we really are at this stage where anything would be better. Like, anything would be better. And we're just, like, not doing it. Which I'm just floored. It's somewhat flabbergasting to me. This idea that we're making people pay back CERB, like, shut the fuck up. Tax these rich cocksuckers already. Like, just tax these rich cocksuckers. Stop going and nickel and diming the populace in order to commit austerity against them, to grind your economy down even more. Yeah, I've thought about this as well, because as this system demolishes itself, we will hang separately, or we'll come to some agreement. Yeah. Like, that's just it, right? Like, we've got to come to some kind of agreement with one another, right? Because it's silly that we have these, like, little pockets of people when we should be coming together in force. Oh yeah, speaking of groups, yes, please look up PSMLS, right? Let's. This is something that Barnabas is involved with. He shares it on the Discord all the time. PSMLS. Lots of good videos. People's School for Marxist-Leninist Studies, right? You want to get more into theory, right? You want to get more into the theory side of stuff. This is a great place to go. Great place to go. 2.68 subscribers. Absolutely. Good. Thanks for bringing it up, Barnabas. Appreciate it, bud. I got to do a bit better of a job myself. Corporations receive nearly $1 trillion in stimulus benefits. Canadians receive maybe $15 billion, yeah? How come we have to pay back, but the record profit corporations don't and are actually getting more? Yeah. Yeah. This is insulting. The political legislative operatives enabled the largest transfer of wealth in human history to the ruling class, and they want the crumbs they gave us back. Yeah. Yeah. Like, we're ruled by a psychopathic death cult. There's a reason why people are, like, swinging off of these liberals and NDP. Like, if a federal election was held today, the Conservatives would win, right? because they see what's happening and they're disgusted by it. And they're too stupid to realize that they're all allies, right? Like, the NDP and the Liberals and the Conservatives are allies. They work together, right? And the goal is to just manufacture consent and to manufacture the appearance of disunity or confrontation or conflict with one another, when in reality they all work for the same guy, right? The analogy I always use is the WWE, right? It's the exact same thing, right? Like, Hulk Hogan comes out, oh brother, I'm gonna tear his head off. No one's more disgraceful than this Andre the Giant. I'm gonna go over there and slam him down to the mat. He'll never recover, right? And then they swing over to Andre, and Andre's like, I'm a giant man who's going to crush your tiny brain, right? And the crowd is going crazy about it. They all get in the ring and they stare at each other and they hit each other. Oh, from the top rope, oh my God, he's got the thing, right? Maybe the ref gets involved, and oh, the corruption, right? And so on and so forth. And then when the whole thing ends, everybody goes home, right? Some result occurs, and then Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant go behind the curtain, shake each other's hands, say good show tonight, and Vince McMahon pays them both. That's our politics. Like, that's our political system. Subbed. And they could have just done the taxes on the SIR payments properly if they were going to take the money back in the end. Like, why not tax properly in the first place? I actually think that they're just doing this to just terrorize the populace. Just keep people why are they fucking around with any of this? Like, why are they keeping people homeless? Why are they keeping people uncertain? Why are they trying to lower wages? Why are they trying to make it? Because they want to terrorize the populace and make sure that we can't do anything. Like, that's what it's about. It's about maintaining their power and control. And they don't care if we suffer. They don't care if it doesn't make any sense. They don't care about any of that, right? They want us to do all the work while they do nothing, right? The fact that wrestling itself is still popular is really telling. It is an interesting cultural phenomenon, but it also does seem to be universal. Like, it seems as though wrestling, like the art form of wrestling, not the actual sport of wrestling, but just the show of wrestling, seems to be ubiquitous. It seems to be universal. Everybody loves this idea of a bunch of shirtless, muscle-bound, sweaty men getting into a ring, trash-talking one another, and then doing a bunch of acrobatics on one another, with a dramatic result. It also seems to allow the culture to express some of its cultural anxieties, right? Like, you've got characters who are obvious, like the Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, right? Like, and then and so the $1 Million Man comes in and everybody boos him because everybody hates the rich people, right? And then Mick Foley. Mick Foley was a true champion, and that ethos of the $1 Million Man gets replaced by Vince McMahon himself. That's what's so fascinating about modern wrestling, is that Vince McMahon, the owner of the place, has become a character within it himself, and he's embraced the idea that people are going to hate me because I'm the owner and because I'm the rich guy in the room, and so I'm the villain. Right? That's what's wild about Vince McMahon, man. That's what's wild about the WWE, is that Vince knows the score. He knows that he's the owner. He knows that he's the guy in charge, and he knows that people hate him for it and that he's the villain, and so he is. It's astounding what he does. It's actually really, 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 he is very prescient and very aware of what's going on. Oh yeah, Ted DiBiase's an evangelical nut. Of course he is. No, a lot of these guys are like that, dude. We shouldn't pretend as though the movie The Wrestler was essentially the life of Jake the Snake Roberts, right? Like a lot of these guys end up just falling into total catastrophe. Like what happened to Rick Ramone or Razor Ramon, right? His life just fell into total shit. I think he's on an upswell right now, but good for him. So, not to minimize the struggles of the disabled, but there are lots of OW recipients struggling to live on $700 a month. The entire social safety net needs to be adjusted for the rising cost of living. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Is this article not about the people who abuse it? It's not about the people who abuse it, but what this article does is it picks somebody whose disability is easy to dismiss, right? It's not like she's like has no legs and is blind or something, right? Like so they in my view they've done this on purpose. That they've gone and they found the person who's like easy to pretend as though she doesn't need to be on disability, even though she has a doctor, even though she's living her own life, even though we don't actually understand or know what she's going through, right? But so it allows them to say, oh yeah, here's the issue that's going on, and allows them to be honest about what's going on. But because they don't pick somebody who's like inadvertently, it's not somebody who's like obviously disabled, right? Oh, Razor Ramon died. Oh, sorry to hear that. He was a real character, man. Wrestling is the working man's theater. Yeah, don't talk smack about wrestling. Cotton's hitting it, right? It is the working man's theater. It is. Like, it's where working people can express a lot of their anxieties. And sometimes it's, like, very racist. Like, very, very overtly racist. Like, we remember the Sheik, right? The Golden Sheik, right? Like, what was the name of that? Tatanka? Like, no. Tatanka. What's his name? Tatanka. Which isn't to say there shouldn't be, like, representatives in all of this, but it's always in the most stereotypical version of it, right? Like, it's never that they are First Nations and then are also a wrestler. It's literally like they're First Nations, therefore they have got to be like the Earth Mother tells me, you know, like that kind of crazy shit. Or not crazy shit, but like the stereotyping, which is completely ubiquitous in all of this, right? I'm trying to think of like the most overt version of that. I can't think of anything offhand, but definitely, like, it certainly exists within wrestling. Yeah, the number of affordable cities in Canada for young people? 0. The snake charming one from WWE is pretty funny. Problematic, though. Yeah. I haven't paid any attention to WWE in a long time. Mainly because I feel like I grew up. You know what I mean? Actually, I shouldn't say that. Like, what happened to me is I was a big, like, WWE fan, right? I remember when it transitioned from WWF to WWE, and then UFC started. And I remember I watched one UFC event, and I immediately, like, my entire worldview around wrestling, because we still thought that wrestling was real. There were still people who were being like, wrestling is real. It's real, man. These guys are... And I like, even as a kid, I was like, is it real? Like, a guy throws a guy against a ring, against a rope, and he bounces off the rope and then gets clotheslined. I'm just like, I don't know if I would do that if I was in a real fight. And then I watched the very first UFC I watched, and I was like, that's real. Like, that's real. And that was it for me. I never went back to WWE in any kind of significant way. I was always just like, once I realized and once I knew it was fake, it just lost a lot of luster for me. And it wasn't until later that I kind of came to understand, like, oh yeah, this is like theater, right? This is just like theater for bros. I remember the first WrestleMania where Roddy Piper was literally whipping a tied-down Mr. T with a belt. Oh yeah, wrestling is turbo racist. Yeah. They had a Latino wrestler play an angle where he embraced white supremacy. A guy gets smashed with a chair over the head, wrestles the next day. Yeah. How are people actually getting to work with gas prices right now? Yeah, Matthias asking the big questions. Yeah, dude. How are people making this work? Like, how are people squaring these circles, you know? Like, it's just so fucking unbelievable to me that people still participate in this nonsense. And, like, the idea that amidst this gas crisis, this is the moment that, like, guys like Elon are like, everybody needs to come back to work. Hey, everybody, now's the time to come back to work. Now that it costs you 3 times the amount to come back to work, now's the moment, right? Like, what the fuck are you even talking about, you know? I had this right in front of me. Ugh. I only let my car get to 3/4 empty. Like, just like let people work from home. Like, I don't understand this. Like, let people work from home. Like, we're in this like crazy. Where the heck was this? I had it. All right. Anyway, like, it seems to me that the only reason we don't want to embrace the work from home culture, outside of the obvious, like, asserting your dominance bullshit, is that it would leave a lot of these, like, landlords up shit's creek, right? Like, a lot of this office space would just go to pot, right? I can't weld rail cars for my living room. Yeah. But there's a lot of work that can be done from home, dude. There's a lot of, like, and let me be really clear when I say this. There's a lot of work that could be done from home. Yeah. No, yeah. What about jobs that you can't work from home, like construction, though? Those guys are getting $20 to $30 an hour, have long distances for work sites. Yeah. And buy the biggest gas-guzzling truck they could find, right? Like, to be a man, right? It's like that TikToker I follow every so often. He's always like, buy a truck with gas. Buy a truck that takes so much gas you can't afford to drive it. Be a man. Like, yeah, I love working from home whenever I get the chance. Guys, like, you are talking to a guy who is saying that we should all stop. Like, we should stop. We should stop all of this. Like, those construction workers should just not go to work. Everybody who's going to work should just stop. This should become the culture. And I understand why we can't do that. Like, I'm not trying to pretend otherwise, but, like, more and more and more, like, we're absolutely, like, we're running out of fossil fuels. Like, we're running out of oil. Like, this is the part of this that is just so astounding to me. Forget about the climate change issue, right? Like, God knows most people have, right? Forget about the climate change issue. We're literally running out of the stuff. Like, you can see it. There's a chart. It's in decline. We are running out of the stuff. And there's just, like, no plan to get off of it at all. Nobody is sitting around being like, maybe we should actually not base our entire system on this commodity that we run out of. Definitely. Like, and that's the like, they call it a non-renewable resource. Like, we know it runs out. Like, that's just a fact. Now we're just going to double down on it. What we need is more oil. What we're going to do is start shooting rockets into space, and we're going to start mining asteroids. There's gas on the moon. Yeah, I've tried to link it before, but I can't. Oil has 47 years left at the current rate of consumption. Well, and the way that capitalist economics works is that the price is only going to increase, right? It's going to increase dramatically. So we don't actually get to a point where we use the last of the oil, right? There's always going to be some, because the price, the cost of using it would be so prohibitively high. And there is a bunch of there is a bunch of oil that they can't actually get out of the ground because it's too expensive to get. But of course, as prices go higher, they'll be like, oh, the price is so high, people will pay it, let's get it. Because we're fucking stupid that way. Maybe we'll get convoys against the gas companies at some point. Yeah, we'll see about that. I started a container garden to battle inflation and capitalism. Tomatoes incoming. Gardening. I got to do that myself, man. I'm just being lazy about it, honestly. I've got a friend who, like, she gardens like mad. Like, she's an awesome gardener. Everybody should do it. Fuck lawns. Like, what the fuck is this? Fuck golf courses. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Yeah, the only way to make work affordable is firstly abolishing landlordism. Yeah, getting rid of these fucking loser landlords for sure. I think the destruction of the ozone stratosphere is going to ignite us before we run out. Yeah, that's probably right, Matthias. Right? Like, that's something that people don't really want to talk about. Right? Like, hey, did you guys know that the sun is hot? Did you know that UV radiation is bad? And we're going to just get more of it? Speaking of the Freedom Convoy, one of the supporters at work felt it was a working class movement. I asked him what working class demands were made. Yeah, crickets other than end the mandates. Yeah, they were pretty like it seems to me. I'm in a couple of subreddits where the mandate thing has really persisted. Like they've really they're still like affronted by it. And I think it really is just like how dare they? How dare they mandate us to do anything? You know? And I think that's really all it is. My phone gets weather alerts of ultra-high UV radiation almost every day. Ugh. Yeah, man. Like, and and while it's all happening, the American infrastructure system, right, the system of power and all of this, isn't going to be able to handle it, right? So you're looking at a situation like, let's go. Let's get real fucked up. Let's look at Texas, because Texas is exactly the place, right? The most amount of shootings, the most amount of guns, the most amount of yeehaw, kooky, crazy nut jobs living in fucking Texas. No offense to anybody living in Texas. My condolences. Like, huge desert area, right? It's close to it's closest to the equator, so huge heat, all this kind of stuff. The power grid is already failing. It's already going down. They're already experiencing blackouts. They're already experiencing this, and they have no interest whatsoever in repairing any of it. Right? It's just going to get worse. Like, there are coming moments where Austin will just be out of power, and that'll be the end of it. It just won't get power back because it's not profitable to get power into Austin. Just working class people who wanted work to feel like it did before the pandemic. Just make work feel slightly less degrading. Yeah, good luck on that. Especially as the working class works to make it as degrading as possible. End the mandates was a ruling class demand since the Thomas Friedman in April 2020 wrote that the cure cannot be worse than the disease. Yeah. They cry that they're freedoms. The world is rejecting us like an unwanted, harmful parasite. Yep. They cry their freedoms are being stolen. I ask you, what freedom that you are talking about? Yeah. No, I do think that it is again, it is this kind of classic conservative ethos, right? If it's happening to you, it's a you problem, and if it's happening to me, it's everybody's problem, right? So they don't care if you're homeless. They don't care if you're living in poverty. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is you told me I had to get a vaccine. I'm gonna vote for a fucking neo-fascist over it. Like, it's classic conservatism. Freedom to cough without covering their mouths. Yeah, I mean. I respect that these guys understand that something has gone wrong, right? That's why I always say, the PPC in the last election was better than the Conservatives, because the Conservatives wouldn't admit that something's gone wrong, whereas the PPC actually was. And now Pierre Poilievre is at least admitting something's gone wrong. But of course their solutions is do more capitalism, so it doesn't fucking matter at all. Schultz has written the largest rearmament program since the end of the Second World War into basic law. Are you talking about, is this German politics right here? Yeah. America's going to pull out of NATO, man. Like, Trump has been rattling that saber. He's been doing it for quite some time now. There's more and more support for it coming out of the Republicans, right? And if the United States is gonna pull out of NATO and tell Europe to arm itself, then you're gonna arm yourself. And the Ukraine war was very spooky, I think. Spooked a lot of people in Europe, right? So, yeah. I said, okay, what 3 things do you want to see improve things? He came up with 1, respect individual choice. Yeah, as broad as it can get, right? As broad as it can get, right? I bet number 2 is business, right? 2, business, right? Respect individual choice. 2, business. 3, I don't know. Make white people powerful again. Yeah, like, the lack of specificity is always fun. That's always fun. And of course, I'm more or less of the opinion that if America pulls out of NATO, it's not great, right? Like, it's great. Like, it's not great. Like, I understand why people would kind of celebrate it. I'm not going to. Because I feel like the only thing that keeps Europe from descending into another war is the fact that the United States is like the big daddy kind of overseer, right? That a place like Europe needs an overseer, obviously, or else it'll just descend into an internal war. And so the idea that Germany is rearming, right? While America removes its sort of overseer capacity, right? Well, what do you think's going to happen? Especially as Russia begins to actually cut off the gas to these places, right? Like, I'm pretty certain, guys, that we're going to see another European war, right? Like, it's what they do. It's what the Europeans do. Right? They don't seem to be able to actually come to terms with, like, maybe we should talk about it, come up with an idea, and agree to move forward. Let's see. Respect individual choice. You should ask him if he thinks that about abortion. Respect individual choice, except on abortion, right? No, women don't know anything about their own bodies and don't know anything about that, right? You need to make that decision for them. Private property rights, as always, right? Withhold as much wealth from the mass of the public as you possibly can, right? Renationalizing the economy and end globalism. Oh. Renationalizing the economy and end globalism? I mean, it sounds nice. I'm surprised that somebody who's saying private property rights would also say renationalize the economy. Like, it seems like the whole ethos of what's going on is the idea that the private sector should run everything. And the private sector is running everything, and what they did is they created a global system so that they could enslave people. Because it was literally cheaper for them to send boats to China and then back again in order to utilize cheaper labor in China than it was to just have the manufacturing in their own country. Like, that's wild to me, guys. Like, that's what's wild about it, right? Instead of actually just, like, building it ourselves and paying people a decent wage, they actually found out that it was cheaper to use slaves overseas. And, like, literally sending, like, boats. Renationalizing meaning to return to economies in the West, to return to something of the 1950s. Yeah, okay, like, it's nostalgia porn, Like, it's just like, the 50s were the best. The 50s were the best. We need to get back to the 50s. Make America great again. I mean, rebuilding a manufacturing sector would not be a bad idea, right? Like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually build things ourselves, right? Like, I don't understand how that's anything short of a national security issue. Like, I say this about a lot of things, and this is what I say to conservative types. Like, so, like, how is destroying the manufacturing sector not just a national security issue, right? You're telling me that we're tying our economy to some other, like, country. Seems like a bad idea. Yeah. Well, because we should bring back manufacturing, right? Like, we should be able to make our own shit. And because I'm a good communist, all those manufacturing plants should be owned by the people who work in them. Like, that's how we should do it. Like, I feel like these guys, like, it's constantly the case where I talk to these guys and it's just like, they're so close. They're so close to understanding the concept. And there's just something in their way. And what it is when you actually dig in on what it is, it's just fucking dumb propaganda they heard when they were 12. That's all. They literally watched Reefer Madness and took it seriously. Yeah, build, destroy, build, destroy. Good job, we did it. We did it. We built an economy. On the abortion issue, you'll be shocked that this person is a Christian, a Holocaust denier as well. Oh, well, very credible. And feels it not the same issue as vaccines. Consistency. This guy's an avid PPC guy, avid reader of The Rebel. Yeah, so, an idiot. Like, yeah, like, if you're reading The Rebel for anything other than just like let's see what the honestly, one thing that's happening, and I've been saying this all along, like, watch Tucker Carlson. He does this. He's an expert at this. They are prescribing the problems correctly, right? That the issues that we're facing, they are looking at them and they are saying this is the problem, and they're right. Like, that's the thing that's so interesting is that they're correct in what they say, especially the PPC. And I'm not talking about Tucker Carlson's, like, white replacement theory bullshit, any that kind of crazed Nazi nonsense. But, like, the economic decline that's happening, right, has a reason, and they talk about what that reason is. Like, the erection of NAFTA, the globalization of the economy, the dismantling of the manufacturing sector, right? The siphoning away, the extraction of wealth into the hands of a small global elite, what they say. But then their solutions are insane. Like, their solutions are nuts. Like as dumb as they can be. Just like, do capitalism harder. I've said to him that his theories are probably okay for a 12-year-old, but not a mature man. I mean, this is what a lack of class consciousness does to a motherfucker, right? Like, if you don't understand that there's a working class, if you don't understand that there are owners and that they're owned, and that we work on behalf of the owners while they do nothing of value whatsoever, if you don't understand that on a basic kind of a level, then you can kind of believe what you like, you know? Like, this is something I say a lot. Right? Like, if you don't care about the facts, if you don't care about evidence, like for example, the Donbass War in Ukraine, right? Like, if you don't know about the Donbass War, if you don't care about the Donbass War, if you never pay any attention to the Donbass War, you can believe what you want, right? You can say anything you like. Yeah, look, he's not alone. Much of the working class in industry thinks along these lines, and it's because they've been abandoned. They're rightfully angry, but have no class consciousness at all. Exactly. Right? And they have a kind of, like, fundamentalist individualism, right? Like that, oh, this is all just individuals individualizing their individualism, right? Like, we can't get together. And that class consciousness, we are seeing it begin to erect itself in the United States through the union struggle, most notably in Starbucks, of all places, right? That Starbucks is across the 100th store in the United States unionized. Like that's pretty impressive, right? Like it's that, and that's happening very quickly. Like that's happening very, very quickly. And I think it's because like Starbucks are fairly small, right? There's not a lot of people that work at a Starbucks. It's not like you have thousands of employees in a single Starbucks. It's hard to build class consciousness. Like I try sometimes at work, but I feel like it just goes through one ear and out the other. Well, and part of the problem is that, again, it's that the denigration of imagination, right? Like it's easy to believe that you're an individual, right? Because you are. Here you are. You're an individual. But it's harder to see the world outside of yourself, right? It is actually difficult to do, right? To have a meta sense of the environment that you're in. Like, not only do you need to have an understanding of the environment, right? Not only do you need to know what your community actually looks like from a structural perspective, you also need to have an understanding of where you stand within that community, right? So you have to have at least a glimmering imagined understanding of the structure of the society in the first place. And the only way you can have that is if you can imagine it. So if you have a strong enough imagination to actually imagine it. But if you don't, which most people don't, then when people start talking about these things in this way, they literally can't enter the abstract space. They can't get into the space where they understand it because they lack the capacity, they lack the skill set. It's a muscle that hasn't been used. You're asking a decrepit person to lift 100 pounds. It's just not going to happen. They believe the idealism of capitalism and cannot understand why it's not working, so they've retreated to nihilism, magical thinking. Yeah. Like they've got nowhere else to go because there's no, like, and they don't trust anyone, and the avenues that they should be getting down to, like this is what's so funny to me is that the same people who will be like, the media is lying to us and I'm being betrayed and all this kind of stuff. Oh, but communism, I still believe 100%. Like, bro, like read the Communist Manifesto. Like fucking read the thing. This is why Republicans are so dangerous. They will lie by omission. They will simply make policies that push things further to the right, of course. Atomization, alienation is a real thing, or are real things. I think people at work also don't really have the time and space to think about it. That's true too. That it's sad to think of the place we're in as a class. Yeah. Starbucks are also staffed by seemingly progressive workers. Yeah. Well, that's where the artists are. Like this is the thing. Like somebody asked not that long ago to me. They were like, "Where's the protest music? Where's the people who are in protest? Like where's the artists? Like where are they?" And I'm like, "They're working at Starbucks, dude. Like that's where they are. They're at Starbucks." And so what are they doing? They're unionizing Starbuckses, right? Because they have the imaginative capacity to be able to do so. They understand how to enter the abstract space with one another and communicate within that in that way because they're artists. How come I work and have this knowledge and theoretical background? I don't know, Watson. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, bud. I think that's a you question. We each come to it in our own way, right? And let's never, like, there's also the reality that, like, I keep talking about this abstract space skill set thing, right? Like, some people just have it and some people don't. Like, there's that aspect too, right? Like, there are just some people, like, you can be just like a working class dude looking around and just be like, hold the fucking phone. And, like, all you have to do is, like, encounter, like, if you encountered the Communist Manifesto when you were a kid and you had this kind of, like, ability to perceive and understand things around you better than other people, right? You could be radicalized pretty quickly, I'd think. Believing that doing capitalism will solve itself, but without fundamentally understanding how those problems are created. Rather, they do the very thing that makes the problem worse. Yeah. But, like, it's insanity, right? Like, Einstein's definition of insanity is keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Yeah. And they've been conditioned not to read things that might provide a roadmap to get out of this crap they're living in. I mean, I'm more or less of the opinion that that's part of the whole objective of the education system, is to make people despise reading, right? Like, if you can make people really hate reading generally, right, then they're definitely not going to read stuff that runs counter to the capitalist ethos, right? I keep telling these guys who will all vote PC today that you cannot vote your way out of this. Things are not going to change because Doug Ford will claim he owned the libs. Yeah. No, and I mean, obviously Doug Ford's going to make it worse. Like, Doug Ford's a pretty obvious grifter, right? Oh, geez, Niagara West. Sounds like a party over there, dude. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. Like, share, subscribe. Tell people I exist. This has got to be updating. Come on. Well, it updated, yeah, like literally a minute ago. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, of course. No, of course. Yeah, the cons could run a bale of hay out here and win. Yeah. There are definitely ridings like this. And, like, the truth is, for a lot of these rural places, as long as, like, you've got your house, right, and you're running your business, right, you don't give a shit. Dust James is an ML trucker. Y'all might want to look into. He's a bit of a Pat sock, but more sock than Pat. I don't mind the patriotic socialists. I think that it's communists attempting to square the circle of American patriotism with communism, right? Like, and I don't necessarily get that myself on like a personal level, as somebody who's not particularly patriotic, but I understand that there are people who are like that and who want to think better of the legacy of American history. You know, they want to grab hold of like Lincoln, right? They want to bring that kind of energy into the modern era. And it's like, yeah. I mean, I guess. I also think it's not a bad marketing strategy. Just straight up, just like to try to amalgamate. No, apparently turnout is between 40 to 45%, the lowest ever in Ontario history. Of course, that's part of the strategy, right? Is to browbeat the populace into not coming out to vote, right? Like it's honestly, like, Del Duca and Horvath are uninspiring leaders. Like really, if you look at it, like Del Duca is just another McGuinty win liberal. When Ford says, "We saw what things were like under you," right? That resonates, right? There's a lot of people in Ontario that listen when Ford says, "But you were there with McGuinty, you were there with Wynne," right? Like, and what got Ford elected was this anti-Wynne sentiment. Right, and this anti-Wynne sentiment, he can just dump on Del Duca. Del Duca's response is Ford's just trying to run the last election again, and yeah, of course Ford's trying to run the last election again. It's working, right? And then Horvath is just weak. She's just a weak leader. Like, there's no further critique that I can levy at her. She is a weak leader who must resign. Like, there's just no. If you can't beat Doug Ford, you cannot be the leader of the NDP anymore. It just really is that, as straightforward as that. She must resign, and if the NDP refuse to force her to resign, if she won't resign, then they really are just like a party of losers. Like, the writing is on the wall. It's as obvious as it can be, right? That what the NDP needs, if they're actually interested in taking power, which big question marks about that, is a strong leader who actually gives a shit about whether or not people are suffering, right? We ran Dust James off on a Facebook page I was on, called him up for Stalinism. He called us all revisionists and an insane rant and bounced. I hate that shit, dude. What you just described there, like if I went onto a Facebook page and somebody was like, "You're just a Stalinist," my response would just be like, "No, I read Stalin and I try to understand him. He was the leader of the Soviet Union, right? I don't see a problem with that. What do you guys like?" That's my position. Like I don't exclude any of these guys. I don't take a hard line on any of these guys. I've talked about this before though, so you guys know what I'm talking about. I feel like I lose a lot of support amongst certain communist groups when I take this position. Like, I genuinely don't care. Like, and I never will. These guys were men writing during incredible times, right? I tend to understand where they're coming from, and people don't believe me when I say this, right? But I believe that for both Trotsky and Stalin. Like, I understand where both these guys were coming from. Like, it makes total sense given their perspectives and given who they were and given where they stood in the grand narrative of all of this, right? Like, I actually think that if you took the story of Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin and set it on Mars or something, right? And just told the story exactly as it was, but it's all set on Mars. And instead of his name being Joseph Stalin, his name is like Joe Star or something, right? And instead of like Trotsky, his name is like Trevor or something. Like, like just change the names just very briefly. And you just told the story, and without the attempt to demonize them, right? I think it would be one of the greatest stories ever told. I think people would love it. It would absolutely like be like Game of Thrones level popular. Like and if I were telling that story, my goal would be to have like an organization of the Trotskyists and be like, I want you to believe at the end of this that I have told the story of your hero, that your hero gets his fair due. And I would turn to the Stalinists and I would say, I want you to come to the end of the story and see this man as a hero. And I want you to believe that he's the hero of this story. And I wouldn't be satisfied until both of those groups were satisfied that I had told the story of Trotsky as a hero and the story of Stalin as a hero and the conflict that ensued between them, because that's how people would come to understand that what happened between those two men was a great and grand tragedy. One of the great tragedies of human history, in my view. Because in the end, both of them really just wanted what was good for themselves, obviously, but for the Soviet Union as well, and for their country. And I think both of them were great patriots. Both of them really believed in what they were doing. And, hey, Sudbury. Election over. NDP wins. Hey, Richmond Hill. Here we go. Here we go. No, but you know what I mean. Like that. Yeah, he wasn't like a patriot, but like he cared about his country. That he cared about his country. All right, guys, we're going into overtime. Actually, I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but fuck it. Stick around if you want to cry with me about the election results. Oh, here we go. Here we go. London West. Oh, London North Centre. All right.
Here live at headquarters in Hamilton.
All right, thank you for that, Shalima. Just a reminder, at the corner of your screen, you are seeing Doug Ford.
I'm going to get some food for myself.
Watching election results.
Stick around if you want to watch these election results.
For the NDP, 2 for the Conservative Party, but again, these are leading and elected, and we'll see where those are. None for the Liberals. Let's go right to Sean O'Shea. He's in Vaughan, with where Stephen Del Duca will be at some point this evening. How are things going there?
Well, Stephen Del Duca is upstairs in a room right now watching this with members of his family. Unlike Doug Ford, whose images you showed a little while ago, the Liberal Party is not allowing our pool camera to go and show those images. A very different atmosphere. Will this party headquarters be a party tonight?
Yeah, because the Liberals
Well,
know they're
I guess
going to
we'll find out.
lose.
Dan Moulton, you're the communications
Boo,
guy for the
Liberals.
Is it going to be a party tonight?
Look, I think if we look at where we were 4 years ago, we've made a heck of a lot of progress, and I think that tonight we will be in a position to form a new party in the Ontario legislature.
I asked you off camera what would be success tonight. You told me party status.
Well,
Isn't that a pretty low bar?
I think 4 years ago, if you look at where we were, it's exactly where we need to be tonight. And over the last 4 years, we've done a lot of rebuilding.
Success for
If
the
you look at
Liberals
where we
means
were,
having seats
where we were
and being a
last.
party.
Not enough seats to form a party.
Fucking
$10 million
Liberals.
in debt. We've done a lot of rebuilding these last 4 years, and we're excited about the results.
Final quick question. Stephen Del Duca lost the last time in his own seat. Is he going to be able to win this seat tonight?
We're feeling really confident here in Vaughan Woodbridge today.
And well, thanks very much. So there you go. Here at Liberal headquarters, they've got the buttons out. A few people showing up. The drinks are opening up. People now starting to come in. But this is going to be a really interesting place to watch tonight because are the Liberals going to be able to bounce back? Will they get official party status? Could they become the official opposition? Will Stephen Del Duca win his seat? Lots of questions that need to be answered. We're going to be here to answer all of them for you. Back to you.
Alan, did you hear that? Thank you so much, Sean. And Sean asked that question, is it going to be a party tonight? And there was, very much a spin to that answer.
Oh, yeah. Del Duca might lose his seat.
How do you define party?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Del Duca might lose his
I
seat.
think it's
Wouldn't that be
pretty
fucking
clear it's a party
amazing?
at where Matthew Bingley is. Maybe it is just a party with wherever Matthew Bingley is at all times. I don't know that, but Matt's at the PC headquarters tonight. Matt.
That's right, and I'm joined here now with conservative strategist Jason Leader. Jason, a lot has been made about the change in tone of this campaign, a lot more measured on Doug Ford staying on message. How much, I guess the question is, how much of a strategy was it to make sure that he didn't veer off of that?
Yeah, very deliberate strategy. I think there was two sort of points to that. One, sort of staying out of people's faces. People have seen a lot of this guy over the last couple of years, and sometimes it's best to just
Say
pull back
nothing.
and say, you know what,
Promise
I've
nothing.
done a decent job.
Do nothing.
You guys sort of judge me and have at it. And then second, staying on that really simple message, which is, the economy's a little bit in turmoil. You're looking around, you're seeing
Simple
Ukraine, you're
message
seeing
for simple
inflation,
folk.
interest rates
What have I been
rising, all that
saying?
kind of stuff. Somebody's going to work on that stuff.
Simple
Somebody's got
message for
that.
simple
And he's got
folk.
this sort of the sort of business background to let that out. But I think the real key here, as I said
Yeah.
earlier, was staying out of people's faces. It was the quietest election campaign in Ontario that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I think that was a very deliberate strategy by the Ford team to sort of, again, just let people sort of decide. He did a pretty good job. Let's give him another shot.
Just on that, staying out of the public eye, there were a lot of criticisms leveled at this campaign for maybe not engaging enough with the electorate. Is there too little that you can actually engage with voters in the campaign?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I actually disagree generally with that because I think Ford, number one, everybody knows what Doug Ford stands for. The guy stood in front of, a microphone for the better part of 2 years, answering more questions than anybody's ever answered, any Ontario premier's ever answered over the course of a 2-year span. I think people knew what they were getting with Mr. Ford, and I don't think he's him and Mr. Trudeau are legitimate political superstars. Everyone knows who they are. Everyone knows what they stand for. Everyone has seen them sort of answer all these questions. So I think really, truthfully, a little bit less in your face is a really good thing to do, and it was the right strategy for this campaign.
And we're going to see Doug Ford again at a microphone a little bit later. I'll send it back to you for now.
Thanks very much, Matt. I appreciate that as we continue to look at live video of Doug Ford and his family taking into the results. Already PCs leading or elected with 16, NDP 4, Liberals 2, Green 1.
Let's find out where. Here's David Aiken with more on the early results. What are you seeing, David?
That's right. We'll take a look at the map. We've got a lot of blue on the map. In eastern Ontario, the PCs tend to dominate. They are leading right now in the bellwether riding. That's Peterborough right there. Dave Smith has a 32-vote lead with 1 poll reported. But again, that's the bellwether riding of Peterborough. We did have, as we look through the province, you see a leaders riding right now. That's Guelph. Mike Schreiner is leading in Guelph. 2 polls reporting, and Schreiner's already out to a 500-vote lead. That's very good after 2 polls. Mike Schreiner leading. For the NDP, they'll be very partnered here in Ottawa Centre. They appear to be holding Joel Harding. That's going to be a two-way fight between the NDP and the Liberals all night. New Democrat Joel Harding up by 500 on the Liberal Katie Giggs.
Oh, yeah,
but
man.
again, take a look at this map right now.
CTV declares
Where
a
the
PC win. Of course they do.
have seats, they're
Like,
by and large holding
it's-
seats. And in fact, if we take a look into Toronto now, we've zoomed in a little bit, we do see in Scarborough Agincourt, that's Aris Babikian, he is holding on. He is the incumbent, 286 vote lead, 3 polls in. Other ridings that we're keeping an eye on in the Toronto region, Scarborough Rouge Park, PC's also holding. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, David. Thanks for coming back to us because we've got some breaking news coming in.
Not
Wow,
even 15
that was
minutes.
Fast. Global News projecting that the Progressive Conservatives will form a majority government. They have or are expected
There you
to
go.
secure at least 63
Took 11 minutes.
seats in the legislature.
10 minutes after the polls closed is when this call is being made. Let's go right to Matthew Bingley at PC headquarters. Matt. Oh, we don't have him yet. We're looking at a live shot there, and it's not full yet. So I'm sure the celebration will happen. Sometimes when these calls take a while, it's you see the celebration, but even it's so early, there aren't so many people here. David, can we bring you back in because I just want to understand how we got here so fast.
Well, we got here so fast because, again, Conservatives are winning where they have strength. They have strength right across the province. They have the most efficient vote. But let's take a look at some examples of some pickups we see now. It's still early. I want to stress that. By the popular vote, it's clear the Conservatives will win that majority. But right now, Vaughan Woodbridge is in the PC call.
I mean, this is a victory for the death cult, right? A proof that their media apparatus works, right? Like that's what the media apparatus is for, right? It's for controlling dissent. It's for manufacturing consent. And the browbeating of the populace and simply presenting Horvath and Del Duca like not actually presenting their platforms. And honestly, like Horvath's weakness as a leader is that she doesn't understand that people are single campaign. Like, you need a single issue. That's it. Just need a single issue. Like, Doug Ford's own campaign strategist came out and said it. Simple message, stay on message. People know what we stand for, right? The people of Ontario are simple, right? Well,
all right, thanks, David. And as you see those numbers, there are 38 for the Progressive Conservatives leading or elected, 13 NDP, Liberals 7, Greens 1. And you ask yourself, how can we, make this call so early? Well, it's the popular vote, as David mentioned. Let's take a look at what the popular vote stands right now. And this compares also to 2018. Right now, you have the Progressive Conservatives actually slightly bettering their 2018 results. And remember that in 2018, they won 76 seats. The Liberals have bounced back with a little bit more than they were in 2018, 24.2% currently. Look at that, the NDP number coming back down from where they were in 2018. And the Greens up. That's good news for the Greens, regardless how it ends at the end of the night, at 6.7% of popular vote at this point in the evening.
But of course, the Greens do want that other seat at Queen's Park. Let's go again to Matthew Bingley. He is at PC headquarters. What was the moment like there, Matt?
Well, you could hear it in the background. I was in the middle of talking with Jason Leader. a huge cheer went up from the crowd, a lot of chanting, a lot of very, very happy voices, and really no surprise. Earlier on in the evening, talking to some of the campaign insiders, they were saying that they had big smiles on their faces, but they didn't want to get overconfident at that moment. But
now it's just going to be extraction,
the energy level in this
it's just going to be high-level
has
extraction.
Noticeably picked up. And you can hear people just milling about, a lot more happy faces than as you really would expect. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you for that.
And the Rubes will go along with it.
Shalima Maharaj, she's over at the NDP.
The Rubes will go along with it because
As Alan
jobs.
pointed out in that popular vote,
Right?
they are
Oh, they
down
made
in the popular
10,000
vote.
jobs
So we'll see
for
what the seat
5
count
minutes.
is.
So
But I believe
jobs.
we should have Shalima, as you are looking also at the corner of your screen. We are still looking at Doug Ford and his wife and his family watching results. Go ahead, Shalima.
Hi there, guys. You know what? In the room right now, I can tell you there's definitely a lot more people in and around the convention center just waiting for the arrival of Andrea Horwath. There really hasn't been much of an overall mood shift. You haven't heard more people sort of talking quite yet. I think obviously the big battle for second place has been where all eyes have been, primarily throughout this race and throughout the evening. You know, we've been talking to people about what their expectations are going in here, and a lot of the questions again continue to fall on whether or not there is going to be a future with the leader of the party, with it, whether or not Andrea Horwath is going to remain with this political party going forward. Obviously, we did see them gain quite a bit of momentum during that 2018 election. Clearly, they were up against the Liberals in a battle for that second place. And so right now, you know, I'm going to step out of the way. I'm not sure if you can see here, but you know, we do have a few more people coming in. We're still awaiting her arrival. But certainly once we do get that, and once we do continue to see those results trickle in, we'll bring you all of the latest from campaign headquarters here in Hamilton. But for now, I'll send it back to you in studio.
Thank you, Shalima. Let's check in on Vaughan Woodbridge and the results as they're coming in from there. And this is not good news for Stephen Del Duca or Liberal hopes for a comeback. Our results at this point, with 4 out of 38 polls reporting, is that Michael Tobolo is more than doubling at this point. The vote count for Stephen Del Duca. It is still early, but that is a sizable lead in Vaughan Woodbridge for the PC incumbent.
Oh, the stakes are really high.
Del Duca's losing his own seat.
Let's go right to Sean O'Shea. He's now at the Liberal Party headquarters. Sean.
Well, Far, I said a few minutes ago, would it be a party here at party headquarters? And it's certainly not a party right now, not with information like that. Pretty down mood here right now because it does not look good for the Liberals or for Stephen Del Duca. And I want to speak to one of Stephen Del Duca's neighbors in the neighborhood who worked for him, Emily Grosso. What do you think about the fact that Mr. Del Duca is behind and that we've declared that the Conservatives will win a majority government?
Well, it's not over yet, till it's over, as they say. And Stephen has worked so hard, he deserves this seat in Woodbridge. We'd like him to be the leader here, at least. He's lived in this neighborhood all his life, and he's a wonderful man and hardworking. I know the family. I see them walking their dog, taking his children to school. So we always talk, hello, how are you? And, you know, as a neighbor.
So you're disappointed tonight?
Yes, I will be. As soon as we get the full report, I will be. But we've been Liberals. I have. I'll speak for myself, not my family. My parents were immigrants, and from the Diefenbaker days, immigrants were not looked upon as favorable people by the PC government. My father was a laborer. We were 6 children, and he lost his job. Then Pearson came in, and he had a job, and my father said, I will be a Liberal till the day I die. He's got every book on Pearson, and I took them all.
Emily, thanks very much. Emily, very much a big Liberal, disappointed with the results, and of course we're waiting for more results here in this riding, but as Alan, you said a few moments ago, not looking good for Stephen Del Duca in this riding, in his own riding. He lost last time, and things are not looking good for him tonight. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sean.
We want to take a look at some Liberal and Conservative pickups right now. Let's start in Barrie, Springwater, Oro, Medonte. This is going to be an interesting one. Doug Downey is here. He is against Jeff Lehman. He is a former Barrie mayor and three-term mayor, popular mayor. We'll see what happens there. We're also looking at Eglinton Lawrence over here, and we can see it's pretty close there. Now, only 8 polls are reporting, but you see the Liberal is ahead.
In Toronto, St. Paul's, what do we have here? The Progressive Conservative out in front of the Liberal. Pardon me, this is Brampton Centre, apologies, with the Progressive Conservative leading here. This is where the Liberals were hoping to come back, maybe, and Sarah Singh there is the incumbent, and she's in third. In York South-Weston, Michael Ford, might another Ford be heading to Queen's Park? Right now in York South-Weston, Michael Ford is in the lead.
All right, let's bring in our panel because I'm so curious. Oh, actually, hold on. We have one more.
There it is, Toronto St. Paul's with the NDP incumbent Jill Andrew. At this point, out in front of Nathan Saul. This is so important for the Liberals. David Aiken has been talking about this. This is a Liberal stronghold if ever there was one. They lost it in 2018. They need to get it back with Nathan Stahl.
And of course, the NDP hoping to hold on to that. Let's bring in Tracy and our panel tonight. You could tell how excited I was to speak to you, Tracy, because I'm sure they have a lot to say about this.
Farah, our panel has been waiting at the edge of this desk to just weigh in on everything. We knew that it was all going to happen so quickly once the polls closed. And Global News calling a PC majority government. 11 minutes. It took 11 minutes. Melissa, I don't think you were surprised because you actually...
I mean, there's no surprises here. There's no surprises here. The populace has faded into a fiction. There's no other words to use to describe it. But I don't think any of that matters. The populace has retreated into a fictional version of itself. It believes something of itself that is completely falsifiable. And honestly, it thinks that the best way to build an economy is to destroy an economy. That's really the bottom line. That the best way for us to move forward as a community is to destroy the community. This is the central belief system of our society. That the best way to build is to destroy. And the best way to create is to dismantle. We're going to see a fairly major push for privatization now. Yeah. I don't think I'm with you, generation. It's not really a victory. Okay. Yeah, guys, I think I'm happy to call it myself. I don't think I can spend much more time watching this. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure you just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.